which have so far been dominated by female athletes.
So huge.
Toronto's own Penny Alexiak secured her 7th career medal.
And I would say probably 40% of them are saying, well, I'm not so sure about having
when Canada's swim team took the bronze
in knowledge test for voters, but maybe for individuals who are running for office before they get nominated for what they know.
Plenty more track and field events.
That's interesting.
And early tomorrow morning,
That's a much
women's
repeated
semi-final
point.
between Canada
So
and
while
the
I was putting
United
this
States, and
segment
lots more
together
like cycling, sailing, and
about the
artistic swimming.
test,
We have all you need to know from
I started
touchdown
to
right
think
here
about
on 60
who else
News.
gets to vote
I'm Madison
in
Fitzpatrick.
federal elections.
It was a look at Degrassi's bronze
And
medal
it
performance on
still
the
takes
track.
people
Here's
by
George
surprise.
Russick of Sportsnet 590 to fame.
And I tell them that Paul Bernardo has the right to vote.
Jewel of any
I'd rather
Russell
have Paul
Wilson,
Bernardo than this.
serial killer, or Canadian Air Force has the right to vote. Alec Manassian has the right to vote. And the way it works is that these individuals vote in the riding where they last lived before they were arrested.
Or
Means he will vote in St.
or
which happens to also be the home of Donna French, the parents of Crystal. And so Bernardo, if he chooses to vote, may very well cancel out the vote of one of them. And I know the parents very well personally. I haven't talked to them for some time, but I know them very well personally. They're wonderful people. Bernardo is in an opportunity to petition for parole. So should convicted murderers like Bernardo, Williams, Manassian be permitted to vote? Others with serious criminal convictions, perhaps, as well. Ari Goldkind, criminal lawyer, media pundit in Toronto. Ari, what do you think?
Roy, it's a really interesting question, and just for some background to this, and the point that you made at home is Paul Bernardo's vote cancel out the votes of the French or Mahaffey family. When you look at it from that point of view,
if he chose to vote where he was arrested,
should be able to exercise his rights in a
you can choose to vote where you're serving your time, where you got picked up, or where you did the crime or some shit. You got 3 options.
Felons cannot vote while they're in prison, and even when they're released, 9 other states prevent felons from voting until their periods of probation or parole are off. The United
That's great, but this state is Canada.
This issue, there are countries all over the world that convicted felons, and the term felon, by the way, meaning a serious offender, not a summary conviction, not a shove or a fist fight at a bar. But we're talking serious.
Those are felonies too, dumbass. Wow, how do you think those aren't felonies?
The Supreme Court in 2002. Roy, 2002 for many people is a distant memory. They weren't even born then. But our Supreme Court, in a very heated pre-social justice, pre-woke, pre-virtue signaling Twitter world,
pre-social justice,
very contentious 5-4 split.
What year was that?
Convicted felons, murderers.
That was before 1949?
Canada. They said it would be contrary to the rule of law to prevent convicted murderers from voting. And the 4 people.
Yeah, because the rule of law doesn't say nothing about that, does it?
This is a great read for those who aren't that interested in today's social justice language, but more in terms of common sense. The 4 judges told the 5 that they don't know what they're talking about, that their notions are ridiculous, and if you go out and kill somebody,
the 4 told the 5.
Oh, we
told you, yeah.
For the rule of law. So where I would come down on my side of the
democracy, the largest group,
look at it from both sides.
Beats out everybody else.
Lawyer of the citizens is I don't know that a convicted murderer should be able to vote. That to me is, if it's a serious personal injury offense, a rape, child abuse of a serious nature, a very serious aggravated assault or murder, to me that person has forfeited their right to be part of the democratic political process, no different than their right to not serve on a jury, not to have a gun, for example, in the state, a whole series of other things.
This is counterfeit, not this is counterfeited.
I've had programs inside prisons with the inmates committee members. And I aired one in Joyceville prison outside Kingston, quite a few years ago. And the issue of the likes of Paul Bernardo, in this case it was Clifford Olson, who was the mass murderer of kids in British Columbia, his name came up. And I said to them, so there's obviously no respect for Clifford Olson in this prison. What would happen to him if you were placed into the general population of this prison? And the answer, Ari, was instant. You would be murdered. That was the... So there is no forgiveness for the likes of Paul Bernardo. I mean, he's kept in security and safety in prison because the same thing would happen to him if the general population had access to him.
Just get that out the way.
And then I opened the phone lines. And we did it the day after the program. And you know, the significant majority, the vast majority of callers cited...
Don't give away from all the inmates.
They believed that Paul Bernardo should have been executed. That the death penalty should still be on the books. And I'm not trying to reopen it.
Ask them about Karla Homolka, and this is where the argument falls apart.
For the likes of Bernardo, for the likes of Williams, for the likes of Manassian, it isn't. But the
You've now said Manassian three fucking times.
And
he's the worst of the worst. No, he's not.
Participate in society.
He's a fucking member of idiot. Society. He's getting all the sex he wants now, more than he can handle.
Let's drive that point home from 3 weeks ago. Paul Bernardo, at his stupid waste of time parole hearing, which was just a cry for attention, and a
hashtag Canadian politics.
To the parole board, I want to be let out into the general population. Now, when I was commenting on it in my media life, said, well, that's a pretty bold statement. We know what would happen. Funnily enough, the lawyer for the French and Mahaffey families, because you talked about a personal connection to them, came out and said, why don't we indulge that wish?
Yeah, and I know Tim Danson very well.
Bizarre.
I know Tim Danson very well, Larry.
Sorry?
I know Tim Danson very well.
Yeah, so I thought that was an extremely bold statement for a lawyer to make. I mean, I don't know that I would have gone as far to make that statement. I mean, I probably would have if I say what I want to say half the time. But, you know, you look at what the law does allow. Like, let's just go back to what the law says, because the law on this is a three-letter word. You know what the three-letter word is. It starts with A and ends with an S. And the point of it is, if you get convicted of certain electoral offenses, electoral fraud, and electoral offense, you know, we've seen some people get convicted of this over the years, you forfeit your right to vote. That is part of your punishment that you're not allowed to vote for a prescribed period of time.
Right.
I would suggest that what Alec Manassian did on Young Street, or what Faisal Hussein on the day
is almost the same. Oh, there's somebody that's not in custody, dumbass. This dead guy should not be allowed to vote.
Let's use the word. Let's not gild the lilies.
Now, don't forget Carla Volker's own 14-year-old sister Tammy.
My point is we always talk about.
My point is, the one that we have in jail, we should punish more, and the one we didn't put in jail at all, I don't want to talk about.
Or an electoral offense, the law says it's fine, you know, to not let them vote. I don't know that I can come up with a greater sin against the moral good than murder. And the idea that not only do they have the right to vote, Roy, but the jails have to facilitate their being able to vote. In the United States, sometimes jails are not commanded to do it. But when you look at the 2002 language from the Supreme Court, a different era, pre-George Floyd, you know, a lot of people make the argument that because there's a heavy degree of Aboriginal people in the jails,
George Floyd somehow made the system broken,
that this would be racist. 20 years ago, when the Supreme Court talked about
this, the jail system.
Never say it now because we live in a totally different world.
The only time slavery's legal is if you're state property. Yeah, it is racist. Stupid.
Of a presumed group characteristic. It goes on to say it's
pre-George Floyd.
To say that it's because of race that people are in jail, or because there's a disproportionate number of people of a certain race, that it would disenfranchise certain races or cultures. Have a court say that today. They're all virtue signaling institutions a lot of the time. But really, again, for the Canadian people who often get outraged about a lot of things, Roy, that you and I have argued about that I don't think are outrageous. There's a reason people in penitentiaries, you know, often should be able to apply for parole. There's a reason you want people to think there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
When you take lives,
hope
commit what I say
is a part of the religion. I don't claim it's a religion.
I just don't know how it's not proportional. That's the Supreme Court term. Again, going back 20 years ago, a 5-4 split. It seems proportional to me that when you kill somebody, run them over, shoot them, rape them, that you've essentially said to society, I don't care about your rules, and society says back to you, you forfeit your right to one of the most sacrosanct rights of citizens.
Yeah, Ari, thank you for the time. And just let me just add this. I think it was 1972.
So all he's done for the last 8 minutes, I don't see how. I don't see how it's not. I don't see how it's the same thing. You know, it's like the same thing, but it's not.
I just don't have it with me now. But what he said essentially was, from here on in, our priority is no longer the protection of society, but it's the rehabilitation of the individual. And that was a lot of things.
It never was protection of society.
Long conversation.
They're different ministries.
Thanks, Ari.
It's a ministry of different things.
Criminal lawyer in Toronto, media pundit. When we come back, we are going to talk about.
This is the same guy. Oh, racist. The security guard we're letting testify instead of the other security guard is black like the other security guard. So what are you talking about? How are we racist?
And we're going to talk some Formula One with another great racing.
I got called nigger and half-breed during my eviction in the hearing.
Canada.
They don't see how they're racist. I got called nigger and half-breed, but they don't see how they're racist.
Even if you don't follow it, don't. Right back on the Corliss Radio Network.
Yeah, keep dumping on the router, stupid.
As a proud partner of Team Canada, Access Storage asked an aspiring Olympian to put together some words of inspiration.
To all our Olympic athletes who worked so hard, know that we're all cheering for you. And remember, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. What matters most
is you got free labor by having a kid record your commercial, which is illegal. You paid that kid 50 grand into a trust account. Bullshit. So, you might tell from the title, yeah, I got sick with something. You know how my immune system works, so it'll knock me right out and go to work killing shit off. Oh, I was not well. There was something in my lungs and throat, but it's not there now. It was up in here. It's not there now. Damn. It is not pleasant. I don't know if I'm going to get sick over and over a bunch of times or what. I don't think this is from being re-exposed to the other two variants I had. This is something else. Well, I'll be all right. And my face was hurting too, but I'm guessing that has to do with trigeminal neuralgia. And that's one of those complicated things that's difficult to explain to somebody that ain't got it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So the Moderna doses are going to run out. Thousands of Moderna doses are going to expire. I got news for you. With your supposed 85% or whatever fully vaccinated rate, which that number keeps changing, then you imported hold on. So before we had agreements to purchase whatever, enough to give everybody to fully vaccinate everybody 5 times. 5 times, 10 doses or whatever, 8 doses, 10 doses. Last week or this week, they imported 66 million, 68 million. We got 38 million people here. We were recording today. It ticked over. Oh, it ticked over 10 seconds ago. We're at 38 million and 40. Yeah, whatever the fuck the case is. They imported enough last week to dose everybody twice. Yeah, but they're trying to. Oh, these thousands of doses, 1 out of 38 million. 1 out of 68 million, 68,000. Yeah, 1 to 68,000 is the ratio there. It's gonna expire. So you realize I was joking when I said people are gonna be lining up to get their 3rd and 4th dose and shit, right? I was joking when I said that. One of these is still hot.
while they were negotiating a corner at 180 miles per hour. That sent Verstappen spinning into a tire barrier, and the force of impact was 51 Gs, so 51 times his body weight. He was in hospital to be checked out. There's been a contentious exchange between Verstappen's Red Bull racing team and Hamilton's Mercedes-AMG team.
You're talking about
Hamilton
racing.
was assessed a 10-second penalty. Red Bull doesn't think that's enough. Today was the next race, the Hungarian Grand Prix. People were holding their Grand Prix. People were holding their collective breath. Eric Thomas is the host of Raceline Radio Canada.
So funny,
reviews and analyzes.
Sort of said it and sort of didn't say it.
It's syndicated nationally, produced right here in 900 CHML in Hamilton. He does some better. He does such a great Mario Andretti impression. Even Mrs. Andretti wouldn't be able to.
How are you, Roy? Nice to be on with you.
It's good to have you with us. So before you do Andretti, you have to do it before the end of this segment. What is your take on this? Is massive. This is massive. Hamilton and Verstappen.
Question mark. You know, let's compare and contrast. Is this it with Born to Run? You know, like, I mean, and it's true in my life. The kids I met, I just wanted to be in the city. I wanted to be a New York City band. I wanted to be around it. I grew up knowing every band that was playing in the city that night and not being there.
Yeah.
But it creates darkness and it creates a lot of hope. It creates dreams. There's somewhere to go. It's almost like people who have a very successful father seem to have a tough time.
What are you talking about? So that was the New Yorker hour.
So in the game, maybe the mentality is more important. This is also what we should learn. Keeping a good attitude may be more important because it can make you having a stable or even extraordinary performance.
When Xu and Liu Shuwen lost that doubles final against the Japanese pair, they got a lot of cancellation from Chinese fans and received a lot of applause. But I know table tennis is the sport China dominated for so long, and a silver medal is a failure. But there's no shame to accept it's a failure, as long as you can learn.
Here in the local news,
and know
refer to tomorrow as civic holiday.
Helps you to find your errors.
So today the weather's going to be blah blah blah. Civic holiday is going to be like this, and Tuesday is going to be like this.
Chinese women's volleyball team as well. I know how Chinese people expect them to win every match, every set, every point. But the truth is, in the sports world, there's no such thing of winning every point, winning every game. You have to face the reality that someday, no matter how successful you are,
broken glass everywhere if it ain't about the money.
Stoff kann man noch mal schneller rennen?
Mit Radio erreichen Sie
Blue
immer die
Lagoon,
Richtigen.
break my stride.
Radio geht ins Ohr, bleibt im Kopf.
I remember
When we used to play. Fuck, I just want to end this. Like, I got another for you. It's I didn't even hit the spliff yet. I did. I woke up, smoked a joint, passed right out again. There's heat, all sorts of heat and pain. And that's why I don't get the naproxen script filled, because I'll be taking it and it'll fucking make me bleed out internally. So there's, what's the point in that? Oh wait, that's New Yorker. Never mind. Let's see it.
Rough Rider president. If they hitting, then we're hitting back like. But my nigga ain't close, so you gotta talk to these niggas. Hail Mary, full of grace, smack the bitch in the face. Hail Mary, full of grace, smack the bitch in the face. Never not a rapper, that's bad as bars. In Toronto making hits like I was Alomar. Saute chicken, green peppers at the salad bar. Cops still profile niggas.
So there've been shootings and stabbings and shit, kids getting hit with cars and stuff, and they're not talking about it. So.
Up the avatar. Had 20 niggas, I'm last man standing. My bitch on the runway like a plane landing. It's awesome, shoot up the church like Charleston. Before we listen to Robin Banks, we fucked the Carlton. My mom's brother had that weight, we called him Uncle Phil. Like you could be as fresh as Prince, but I had that fucking will. I met a muscle car, shorty in the forest. Till I'm in a cut, cause some fucking party scoring. Niggas that was worried, or for whores that were whoring. If I put my 50 cents in, it rains when it's pouring. Like none of you niggas fucking with me. Dollars, my young boy gon' smoke it for 150. I'm trying to lead us world with 200 50. If your soldiers were soy, I got 300 with me. Did you say your prayers for the day yet? Niggas getting smoked and had to take a rain check. Hail Mary, full of grace, smack the bitch in the face. Hail Mary, full of grace, smack the bitch in the face. Like bitch, you're dead wrong. I know that they ain't about that. We was cutting beef up, mad cows and all that. Can't tell you about the drama that was last night, but I got the compact, beam with the flashlight. I know they hate to see me like the gaslight. Me versus them, well that's a landslide. I swear they rooting for the feds to win. A man got smoked and his homie ran to Edmonton. If I die, don't call my next of kin. Better act like cartel, I move like you a Mexican. You ain't even smell the shit that you was stepping in. You can ask Kiss, former Rough Rider president. If they hitting, then we hitting back like Jono. We grew up off of cow foot and chicken back, y'all know. No love for informers or liquid.
Check it out. When I get cut, I look into my incisions and I see morbid visions. Red symbols and strange men sacrificing pigeons. After I read a satanic parchment, I break into the apartments of women who've had breast enlargement. And if I get caught, I won't tell the cops, man should maybe do it. Cause it was the smell of vaginal fluid. It turns me criminally insane temporarily. Not saying I'm not foul permanently necessarily. It merely means I'm one sick kid, fella G, who sings a melody of infidelity. My militant infantry shows kids no sympathy. My evil symphony will leave you a victim of infamy.
Be about 8 o'clock. When you spray the block, it's mad hot. You'll have the spot got locked. A little nigga bill from down the hill. We had a 135. I heard you might not survive. Be about 8 o'clock. When you spray the block, it's mad hot. You'll have the spot got locked. A little nigga bill from down the hill. We had a 135. I heard you might not survive.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. The first introduction was Scissor.
Listen to KCRW. Regional weather conditions. Maybe a better option. Hello, it's Andy Lister and Don. Deep Free Insect Repellent offers 12 hours protection from ticks and mosquitoes. Active is available
DEET-free.
everywhere.
Oh, for the last 20 years, you've been telling us DEET is good for us.
Right now in downtown
Now it's
Toronto,
DEET-free.
it is 20 degrees, partly cloudy, 21 at Pearson with some clouds. 6:80 news time, 5 o'clock.
Just room temperature.
Toronto's #1
Turn on your heat, turn on your air conditioning, nothing happens.
This is 680 News.
It's Sunday, August 1st. Good afternoon. I'm Zach Bodenstein.
And I'm Kate Lee. Here's what's making news this hour.
Help you get back in.
A bronze medal for local.
I gotta tell you, Bob, ever since I found it.
100-meter sprint now brings
They
Canada's
can accept messaging from folks who come from their community, who speak their same language. For Sunday, August 1st, it's all things considered.
Over 200 new cases of COVID-19 reported in Ontario.
4 days in a row.
And today was a cool first day of August, but tomorrow's looking to be a gorgeous holiday Monday. We'll have the details in your forecast straight ahead.
The Blue Jays beat the Royals 5-1 at
I'm gonna
Rogers
set
Center
this
to
down
complete
and it'll
the
go out
sweep.
all by
And some
itself.
Kyle Lowry news, Sports 15.
And coming up in business, a Canadian company that says it has technology that kills 99.9% of COVID in the air and on surfaces. 680 news time, 5:01.
COVID's not a lie.
Together on the ones now with Christine Legos.
This report is brought to you by HSBC. Things are getting a bit better on the major routes around the city. Eastbound 401 is just busy through Keele Collectors, from Keele to Bayview in the Express, and from Yonge to Leslie in the Collectors. The eastbound 401 is still recovering from earlier troubles we had east of Bayview in the Collectors. All lanes have been reopened since. Westbound 401, a slowdown from Stevenson to west of the
ensued. So a lot of people could quickly lose their homes now. Emily Benford does research with the Eviction Lab at Princeton University. Outdoor festivals could have up to 15,000 pre-assigned seats. However, Quebec is maintaining mandatory masks and social distancing in enclosed public spaces and transit. Canada has won 2 more bronze medals. And give state and local governments time to distribute billions of dollars from Congress to pay people's back rent and help them avoid eviction. Chris Arnold, NPR News.
The Senate is back in session today to finish drafting a roughly $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. NPR's Giles Snyder reports 2 key senators are optimistic about its passage.
The bipartisan group of senators has been drafting the bill for days. It's a top priority for President Biden, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer kept the Senate in session this weekend to complete work on it. Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins is among the negotiators. She says it will be good for the country.
It's going to make us more competitive, more productive. It's going to create good jobs.
Speaking on CNN State of the Union, Collins said she believes at least 10 Republicans will support the measure.
Right now,
Collins and West Virginia.
Flooding in those areas, and this is just a lot of rain coming down in a very short amount of time. So this could become a very treacherous situation for areas just west of Hamilton. Again, looking at areas including Dundas and over towards Ancaster. Really just heavy rain making its way through. A lot of lightning strikes with this. This is one very potent cell that is making its way through. Again, Hamilton picking up on steadier downpours right now. It's pouring, but areas close to Dundas, between Dundas and Ancaster, I would not be surprised to hear reports of hail. So if you do and can safely take any photos or videos, share it with us at 680 News Weather on Twitter. But again, I'm expecting hail between Dundas and Ancaster, just west of Hamilton. That's where we're seeing rain, thunder, lightning, gusty winds, and then also the potential for hail as well. So
the weatherman isn't Dundas racist. How come you don't have to change the name of that town?
Down to 13 degrees with mostly cloudy conditions. Tomorrow's much better. 25 and sunny. Right now it's 21 degrees.
It's not disrespectful to the black people over there, right?
680 news time, 5:04.
The Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games.
Team Canada's medal count now reaching 14.
Tune to Global News at 11. Get the top stories from anchor Tracy Tong and tomorrow's weather with meteorologist Ross Hall. Weeknights on Global News at 11. And download the Global TV app to get Global News for free anytime.
Japan. The officials were quoted saying no one stopped them from leaving the compound. Japanese media reported the pair was spotted taking photos at Tokyo Tower. Christoph Duby, executive director of the IOC Olympic Games, says sightseeing is not allowed. There are strict regulations to protect against the possible spread of the coronavirus.
You have to follow the playbooks to make everybody as safe as possible.
Japan has seen a surge of new cases since the Games started. The two Georgians are reportedly now home, in line with rules that athletes must leave Japan within 48 hours of their competitions. Mandali Gildarko, NPR News, Tokyo.
In line with
After making
rules.
crude and homophobic remarks at a Miami area festival last week, the rapper DaBaby has now been cut from the
work in finance or be a corporate lawyer and just work at a company.
A rapper used homophobic remarks?
Never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. Graduated from Queens in 2014. I started working in investment banking in Toronto. And at this time, I was wearing a lot of business attire. So business suits, business dresses and skirts and all that. And along with that, I was wearing a lot of pantyhose and tights for work. And I just became increasingly frustrated at the amount of money I was spending on this wardrobe staple. And, on top of that, I couldn't really find a brand that I truly loved. So I thought that I was either spending $10 at the store for a pair that was uncomfortable, itchy, didn't match my skin tone, just poor quality. Or you go to the department store and you splurge. Maybe you spend $50 or $60 for a pair that's comfortable, but it's really expensive, and that definitely adds up, especially when it's something that you go through a lot regularly. So it's just really weird, right? Because you have this product that is worn by so many women out there, but currently there's no brand that's really catering to women. That's kind of how I first got my.
Given out on Sunday. If you're still looking to get a shot, there are a number of pop-up clinics happening around the GTA, including one today at the Abu Haraya Center on Northland Boulevard. I'm Erica Forstall.
Should Canadians be prepared to roll up their sleeve for a third shot? Toronto's Associate Medical Officer of Health says not so fast.
How safe is it to get a third dose of a COVID-19 vaccine?
We don't know, actually. First of all, it's not recommended in Canada right now. And we need
it's not recommended to get 6 doses out of each bottle either.
It is safe, and that it
And if you drop the bottle on the floor, you got to call the fire department, hazardous materials team. They don't know if 1 or 2 doses is safe.
So we know that any vaccine is not going to get the best protection, and they may need a third dose.
Right. The immunocompromised need a third dose because they don't produce an immune system response. So give them some more. What you're doing? Their immune system's too busy fighting off an imaginary disease, and they die of something they already had. I know.
Soon, and are warning the supply could go to waste if people don't show up to get a shot. The CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association says some Moderna shots are set to expire in early August, and generally supply that arrives in bulk must be used up within 30 days. Justin Bates says a slowdown in Ontario's vaccine rollout, the public's
Well, why'd you order enough to vaccinate everybody twice?
For pharmacists to use up Moderna supply.
A Toronto resident is now facing a charge of manslaughter after a 37-year-old man died after being injured in a fight. Officers say that a group of people were in the area of the boat launch at Bluffers Park on the morning of July 19th. One of the men then reportedly made his way to hospital with a critical head injury. Police arrested the 37-year-old Nathan Hill the following day, charging him with aggravated assault. And today, police said that the victim, identified as Stephen Mitchell, died at hospital. Witnesses are being asked to come forward.
Sounds like you got everything you need, bro.
6 in a year's time, 5:08. Not the typical August weather we're used to today, but things are looking up for tomorrow. Here's 6 City's Camille Wilson.
It's the first day of August, and the weather is not so great, but
employment into entrepreneurship.
Yep, so we
all of your summer favorites. The good news is we're going to be clearing out tonight, and we've got a lot of sunshine in store for Monday.
Well educated,
warmer temperatures
good future
finally.
ahead of you in finance. There's a risk aspect here. How did you evaluate the risk of actually leaping from your employment into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a risk aspect. And I will say I didn't go cold turkey.
Yeah, no. You didn't stop working for money, cold turkey. It's not addiction, eh? Like, people wouldn't do it if they didn't absolutely have to. They're not addicted.
Which explains why they always lock people into contracts. Are they worried you'll...
Oh, my God. What do we... Well, I don't have a lot for you. Let's see what we got.
Now, the Biden administration was adamant about making sure that people could get the shot easily, but many unvaccinated Americans are living in low-income neighborhoods, places where access to healthcare and treatment has always been a problem. The vaccine is free, but from what you've heard, is it actually easy for everyone to get the shot, or is accessibility still an issue?
Accessibility is absolutely still an issue. How I've been framing it for people is that availability and accessibility
No idea
are
why
not
girls
the
use the
same
word
thing.
frame.
So even though the Biden administration has really taken on Herculean efforts to make sure that every American
I don't care
lives
what race
within
she really is. She's
5
got the white
miles
girl
of a
voice.
vaccination, and that folks can get
Radio, I get
vaccinations
to
in
protect.
common community-based sites, that doesn't mean that everybody can actually access vaccination, right? 5 miles sounds pretty close if you have a car or if you live near public transit. But if you live in rural America and you have to walk those 5 miles, you might think twice about whether or not that's an accessible vaccine to you. Similarly, we see people have real barriers around not being able to take time away from their childcare duties to get vaccinated and around paid sick leave. They worry about their job security if they were to ask for time off, should they have some of the common side effects that makes them need to stay home a little longer.
You know, there's also been a lot of conflicting messaging.
A little longer
about this
than what?
pandemic. What do you see as the value in sending out doctors who identify racially or socially with the groups you're speaking to?
So part of our approach in the conversation was to include providers who look like the communities that we're reaching out to. There's a wealth of data that tells us that communities are more likely to accept messaging from folks who come from their community, who speak their same language. And what we found is that it creates a safe space where we can say, what we're talking about right now is what I talked about with my auntie or my big mama. Right? Like, we are already, as healthcare providers, having these conversations in our own beloved families. And so we're just extending that circle. Because frankly, for African Americans in particular, there aren't enough African American physicians for us to even have that conversation one-on-one with everybody. And so
we need
as
to
we
deal
go
with sickle
across
cell
the country
first.
and try to gather folks in their communities in groups, we're able to talk to more folks at once who would love to hear this messaging from somebody who they recognize or somebody who they relate to.
Before we let you go, what do you think is the most critical thing that leaders and officials can change in their approach to actually sway people to get the shot?
You know, this is the million-dollar question, maybe the billion-dollar question at this point. The hard truth is it's going to take multiple things. For some people, they need a personal conversation where they can ask a trusted provider or someone who looks like them something very specific about
You need to show
information
empathy.
they've heard or about
So
an
blow
experience
out.
that they've had.
Lots
so that
extra
they
air
feel
when you're
comfortable
talking.
making the choice for themselves. For other people, they need someone to address, and local government and state and federal government are the right entities to address the structural barriers that keep them from having adequate access to the vaccine.
Hey, excuse me,
And then
mister,
I
trying to
think for
kill
other
me.
folks, the
Did you
federal
know you
government
trying to
has
kill me is an
really
unfair
take on
disadvantage
the
against me?
disinformation that
You're
many people
stupid.
are
I
contending
don't care
with
what school
when
you
they're trying to
graduated
make
from or
this
how
choice.
tan your skin is.
That was Dr. Rhea Boyd. She co-created the conversation Between Us About Us, a public health campaign that aims to provide credible vaccine information to underserved groups around the country. Dr. Boyd, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thank you again for having me.
Another misconception that crops up a lot in conversations about vaccination status and a person's right to privacy about that status is actually an acronym, HIPAA. Recently, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Dallas Cowboys quarterback
Your
Dak
sentence was
Prescott
not formed
declined
properly.
to answer questions about their vaccination status, citing
Did
HIPAA,
you just say
the
a
1996 federal law that created standards to protect sensitive patient information.
What's
They
from
are
96?
part of a
A lot
growing
of bad
number
laws
of
came out in
people who
96.
bring it up in a variety of situations
Hey, what
where
about
it may or
HIDA?
may not apply.
High
We wanted
intensity
to
drug
know more
trafficking
about the HIPAA
areas.
law and what it actually does and doesn't do. So we called Devin McGraw. She is co-founder of the consumer health technology company Citizen. She's also the former deputy director for health information privacy at the Office for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Health.
Don't know your
Devin
name, that's
McGraw,
what they call
welcome.
you.
Thanks for joining us.
Kinda like
Thank you for
subject.
having me. So let's dive right into one of the biggest misconceptions about HIPAA is that the P stands for privacy. In fact, privacy is not part of the acronym. So what does HIPAA actually stand for, and what's its main purpose?
Something protection.
So HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
was passed back in 1996, primarily to allow people to change health insurance when they change jobs.
There's only one P.
And then there was another part of HIPAA that was kind of less widely known at the time, which was the ability to digitize health plan claims. So when doctors would try to get paid from a health insurer, they would use common standards to send information electronically. And this was supposed to get some of the administrative overhead costs.
This is why your personal information is floating around in emails right now.
Congress said, well, we're going to be digitizing all this health information. We better have HHS develop regulations to protect the privacy of that information. So hence, the HIPAA privacy rules were born, but they have very limited application because they were really about the submission of healthcare claims by healthcare providers.
So portability and the privacy in moving your records, and not your privacy in talking to somebody else about, your health information. What are some other misconceptions about HIPAA?
I mean, you hit on the biggest one, which is that people just generally think that HIPAA protects all health information at any time for any purpose whatsoever, no matter who is involved. And it's absolutely not true. It does not cover restaurants. It does not cover stores. It does not cover your employer. And it doesn't cover you personally. So, you can be asked your vaccine status if it's relevant to, going into a store or going into a restaurant, and that's not a HIPAA violation. And similarly, if you are a public figure, like a member of Congress or an NFL quarterback, and someone asks you your vaccine status, you can't sort of say that HIPAA prevents you from disclosing it or that HIPAA protects you from even being asked that information. So it's very limited coverage that HIPAA has.
It strikes me that even if people misunderstand it, it really is unusual for a federal health law to be so widely known and discussed. Why do you think HIPAA has caught on in this way?
Well, I think it's caught on in part because of the divisions that we have in the country around COVID-19, around the measures to be taken to protect against COVID-19, which do require people to sacrifice some of what otherwise would be their personal liberties. I mean, I don't think any of us love wearing a mask, right? But we're asked to do so, and in some cases required to do so in order to protect other people. That is really sort of sticking right into the heart of sort of what it means for some people to feel the sense of freedom. And for many people, it gets to the core of, America, we get to do what we want. We have these freedoms. But the pandemic really challenges that. And HIPAA has kind of become the lightning rod in all of this. People are grabbing onto it because they think it protects more than it does. There are just deeper issues involved in all of this, as I think everyone recognizes.
Devin McGraw is a co-founder of the consumer health technology company Citizen, and she's the former Deputy Director for Health Information Privacy at the Office for Civil Rights of the U.S. Department of Health. Thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Yeah, but you really made me lose my appetite.
We're in the cottage home with new locally made cottage drink.
.ca.
The No Frills Hot Summer Haul event's back with hot days and hot deals. Only until August 4. No Frills.
You're not even on the same.
Very interesting concern, and I do understand why some people tend to prefer the traditional way. But I say when it comes to sports or the Olympics, it's always important to have an open mind. And for example, skateboarding you mentioned. I used to watch skateboarding and always trying to look for graffiti at the same time, right? Yeah. Because they just go together. But then again, I did watch some skateboarding events this Olympics. My attention started to shift
skateboarding's not an element of hip hop.
Attention to the announcers and also the commentators explain some of the rules,
street knowledge, street culture,
and also,
street language.
like you mentioned, the kicks and things like that. Because I had zero knowledge, so I found that actually there was a lot into this, and it was not just somebody doing tricks on a skateboard. Yeah. So that's actually science and also knowledge based. So, like I said, it could be very interesting. So keep an open mind. Don't just think this is for entertainment. It's just for anti-establishment and stuff like that.
Right.
It's also sport, legit sport.
Right. And I have my concerns.
Okay, what is that?
Yeah, let's keep using the skateboarding as an example, because for a very long time, skateboarding has been regarded as a very cool underground culture, and it's the best way to show your rebellious soul. And in China, we don't really have a very professional system in cultivating the athletes in skateboarding sports. And if we want to assemble a national skateboarding squad, we have to do it all like from scratch. And also, when you trying to
is it the 1980s? This is the 2020 of 1989. That's what's going on here.
The essence of doing skateboarding, and we have seen the rise of street culture in China, and you can tell from the sales of streetwear brands, even the international famous designer labels. They're trying to seek collaboration with this regional and indie streetwear brands and trying to create a cool phenomenon to attract the younger generation of consumers. But when you are trying to put it into in the Olympic Games, and you say now it's an official sport, it's kind of like go against the soul or the nature or the essence of the skateboarding sports, because it's underground. It should be niche, and also it should be a group of the young teenagers who celebrate what they believe in. And now we just want to internationalize it into universal sports. I don't know whether the younger generation will like the idea or not. And also, I think we have to admit that in China now, the young athletes of doing this kind of sports is not large. The existing talent pool is smaller than we expected, and most people, they're just playing this in the skateboarding parks or some underground venues. So how we can popularize this game is very crucial. And also at the same time, the benefits I can think of is that in the near future we can remove the tax we have attached to this group of teenagers, because for a very long time we may think the younger generation who are doing skateboarding, they're very rebellious and they probably are not doing very well in their academic performance, but now it's a sport and people probably will respect them more in doing this. Yeah.
So if people start respecting this more, isn't that a good thing, Andre?
Yeah, so I think I have a very mixed review, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but pros and cons. Yeah.
Well, that kind of outlook on most things in life, I think, is very useful. Actually, look at
experience and what do you not like, and how can if you could come up with a wish list of features, what would that include? Like all questions under the sun, and then I sort of took all that, and that's how I started Threads. So out of those 200 people, their three biggest concerns or frustrations basically boil down to when they're buying tights, they care about quality, price, and convenience. They want a good product at a good fair price, and they want an easy way to get it.
I thought you were talking about shattering the glass ceiling, and you don't have to wear no damn pantyhose or whatever.
I'm personally excited to go out to buy a pair of jeans or a cute pair of shoes, something that will make me feel good. But I'm not necessarily excited to go out to buy a pair of tights, right? Because it's just like a sort of boring, commoditized item, kind of like soap or razors. So I was thinking, how can I come up with an all-in-one solution that solves all these three buckets? So what Threads is we source our hosiery from Italy. So, very high-end, super high quality, comparable to the brands that are currently selling for like $60 or $80. We're offering it at a really fair price because we're able to cut out the middlemen. So by doing that, we're passing on the savings.
I thought you were cutting out the dude at the top.
For the convenience piece, we sell online. So you can just order online.
You understand what I'm saying? The middleman wasn't the problem. The fact that the whole thing was run by men was the problem.
Our regular Threads wear, you can also offer one of our monthly subscription
selling to women
packages. So you can say like, okay, I wear 2 or 3 pairs a month. You can, sort of set it and forget it. And every month we'll send you 2 or 3 pairs. It's no commitment. You can change styles
month to month.
It's very flexible. So Yeah, so I would say that we built threads to solve, all of these frustrations that people have with their current purchase experience.
And typically when somebody's calling up or emailing in for an order through e-commerce, how long does it take you from the time you receive the order till you ship it out?
So we usually ship within 24 hours, like one business day. And then depending on where you are in North America, it can take you anywhere from, 2 to 5 days to receive it. So currently we're shipping to Canada and the United States.
Okay, so now in terms of your target market, let's say at the start, how would you define it? Would you define it as working women? Is it a certain level of dress code, correct?
Yeah, definitely. So, I started it because it was a personal problem that I was having, right? So I was a working woman. I worked in a corporate world where people are expected to dress a certain way. And, with that, you wear tights or pantyhose. And, but what I also noticed that there's so many other women who are not working in the corporate world who also need that as part of their work uniform. So people like flight attendants or other people that work in the service industry. There's truly so many women out there that wear
dudes tell you
every day that it just seems very mind-boggling.
Skateboarding. Tell us about skateboarding.
The entry of rock climbing into Tokyo Olympic Games has helped foster the
feelings going into this vote, but I understand there's also a question about whether the actual referendum itself will even be valid. Why is that?
Because 40% of registered voters need to cast a ballot for this to count. That's about 39 million people. And observers I've talked to said that is unlikely. People voted in midterms just a month ago, so to have people turn out again in large numbers is unlikely, but we still need to wait and see.
So with that in mind,
that's the theory of American politics.
If the referendum
it's like earthquakes. Right?
We don't. The legal
we just had one, so we probably won't have one.
The vagueness of the question means President López Obrador will have tons of leeway to decide what to do if the result is a yes. If it's no, then nothing is going to happen. But I did actually speak to some human rights activists. Here's one. This is Graciela Rodriguez from the Mexican Commission for the Promotion and Defense of Human Rights. She thinks something
technologies such as Casper to deliver to the business community. He says Casper stands for Continuous Air and Surface Pathogen Reduction. That particular product is a air and surface cleaner, and it's cleaning up to 99.9% of all pathogens, including molds, viruses, bacteria, and it's actually the same technology that's used on the International Space Station. Smith says they're using it at their
on the International Space Station. They don't have the whole rest of the world. That's how they control that.
Across Canada, and as well, we've implemented into a local fitness studio at 45 Leslie Dalton. According to Smith, this disarms COVID up to 99.9%. So that's a very critical element, as in addition to all the other elements, things like viruses and bacteria that it cleans. But it plays twofold. You can imagine, fitness studios and many other different businesses are opening up at 50% capacity, but they're running at 100 to 120% of their costs and expenses. So although it's great to be opening up, we need to do everything.
Oh, you're losing money twice as fast. That's the other aspect of math they haven't talked about.
Our patrons into our stores, feeling comfortable and safe. And Sparta's initiative with Casper is a technology that allows that to
you just told us.
Jason Smith is managing director at Sparta Capital. That's
not venture capitalists, they're venture conquistadors. So at a time when businesses shouldn't be spending money on crap like this, you're going to sell it to them even though it does nothing. But it makes them feel safer. What exactly is it? Something you spray on? Is it like wires attached to the wall or something? What the fuck, bro? You're not making sense.
Our society have links, strong links to the mid-19th century. I'm thinking about those links and that shared history that you talk about. Can you tell me about one specific event in Mexican history that you wish Americans understood better and should be studying? Absolutely. I think for me, one of the most important ones, and one that I mentioned in the op-ed, is the St. Patrick's Battalion. When the U.S. and Mexico go to war, the U.S. asks for volunteers, as many as 50,000 volunteers to go fight in Mexico. And among the many volunteers who join up are recently arrived refugees from Ireland who are coming because of famine. And at the time, the Irish were not seen as good citizens in U.S. society. They were seen as dirty, uneducated, prone to criminality. They lived in ethnic ghettos. So they weren't perceived as being wholesome citizens or those who were wanted. But Irish join this call or answer the call as volunteers in large part because they want to be included in American society. But when they go,
no better way to do that than to go to war with the Mexicans.
Across the border,
you can only see in the future, bro.
And they realize that this is an unjust war. And the Irish flip sides, and they join the Mexican side. They form the Irish Battalion, composed not simply of Irish, but predominantly Irish. They ultimately, when the U.S. wins the Mexican-American War, they're tried for treason and are executed. But in Mexico, they are seen as heroes because it was unwanted immigrants who rose up and had a clear opinion about what was happening on the ground. You know, in your essay, you mentioned the fact that Mexico lost more than 50% of its territory to the United States at the end of the Mexican-American War in 1848. That includes all of what is now California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah. How big a role does that context play in the respective national identities of the United States and Mexico?
You thought you bought all that from the French or some shit, didn't you?
For the case of Mexico, it will take the nation decades to recover this national psyche of having lost a war, but also having lost so much of its territory. And let's not forget, literally 1 month after the signing of the treaty that would end the war and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, gold is discovered in California. At the time, Mexico was bankrupt. If it had been in control of California and gold, potentially its financial problems would have been different, and it could have.
Well, yeah, you would have to spend the gold on munitions to fight off the Americans again.
It really shaped us as a country. When you think of how many thousands of East Coast-based Americans and families headed west in search of the gold of California, or headed west and gave us our identity as frontiersmen and women. But in addition, and this is really interesting, we framed our identity as Americans in a way against what we weren't. And what we weren't Mexican. So you had to create this image of a Mexican who was different than us. So it was a lawless Mexican. The term greaser comes into use at this time, and a criminal element also from this time. And that's not who we were. A lazy Mexican, that's not who we were.
Well, we know that. You got all the damn jobs.
Personal frustration experience met founder Xenia Chen while working on Bay Street. Threads tries to bring high.
Please allow me to reiterate. Please send that voice memo to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. And now our roundtable, as we continue today's discussion, we asked our listeners, what do you see as the Olympic spirit? I mean, on paper,
there will be some showers through the evening, so
and higher, and
probably not.
So this is one of those no news days. There's news, but they won't give it to us.
Best for tomorrow. We have temperatures tonight dropping down to 13 degrees, and for tomorrow, sunny and 25. It's going to be a beautiful day and the start of a really nice stretch of weather. Details on the rest of your forecast coming up at 5:41. Right now, it's 20 at Pearson, 20 at 680 News. Tonight's overnight low is 13.
680 News Time, 5:33.
The Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games.
Well, Tokyo waking up for another day of the Olympics. Canada's women's soccer team preparing for a semi-final match with the U.S. that we can catch at 4 a.m. Toronto time.
Well, you better stay up. Well, Canada's medal count now currently at 14.
We're actually defining for a wide variety of reasons, right? Some people will wear them for warmth, under their pants, or for comfort. And, other men will just wear them for fun. So
some people.
So again, the more we spent on Facebook, the more these male customers started showing up.
So in terms of a percentage of your business
I know. I could have told you that.
What percentage?
I could have told you they're on Facebook. Jesus
From a
Christ.
subscriber basis, 50% of our subscribers
Although
are
you might
men.
not have realized, I guess maybe.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. The algorithm wouldn't show
it's
you.
a large number, for sure.
Professor for the study of Mexico at Harvard University. Professor, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Have a great day. So many men out there that wear hosiery, but a lot of them are secretive about it because I think, you know, there's sort of a societal stigma attached to it, which is unfortunate, right? Because you'd think that in the year 2021, you can wear whatever you want and, you know, not be afraid to, you know,
dudes used to wear
judged
skirts and
about
tights. Like,
but, you know, I think, so again, we have a lot of male customers, and, you know, one of the things that we're launching in the next few weeks actually is a Threads for Men line. So we're launching a product that's, you know, designed
what if women want to wear that one?
for men. So
is that like
basically everything they love about our regular tights, but it'll have more room in the brief area, sort of like a pouch fly section, and longer legs and extended sizing. So
could your product replace, you know, what I'm familiar with, like long underwear?
Yeah, it could. I think a lot of our customers do wear it as a replacement for
there's
long
another
underwear.
whole
What's the
angle.
future look like for Threads the next 5 years?
Oops.
To be focused on developing high quality, top of the line products at affordable prices. And, you know, so many of these pieces are based on feedback from our customers. Like, I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is constantly talking to our customers. You know, I think that's the beauty of a direct-to-consumer business, right? Is you actually get that direct line of communication. So yeah, in the next 12 months, we'll be launching a few more products. Super excited for the Threads for Men product that I just mentioned. And also we're going to be expanding onto other wardrobe staples. So things like, you know, base layers and undershirts.
Sweaters.
So I called the brand Threads because I always sort of thought of that as the long-term vision. You know, these things that are part of your wardrobe that you don't really notice, but are
keep fighting, keep pushing.
It was a long road for Saunders to get to Tokyo. After her Olympic debut in 2016, she was
This is Vanessa Mai and Alexish, but I don't hear Alexish.
Comme ça à la débeauté, donc c'était plus vraiment les aficionados du théâtre qui étaient là.
Et quels spectacles ont séduit justement le plus les festivaliers? Ils avaient envie de légèreté, de rire cette année ou pas forcément?
Pas forcément, hein. Puis après c'est vraiment à l'image du off et de sa diversité où on retrouve vraiment tout le spectacle vivant, la chanson, la magie, l'humour dans le festival d'Avignon. Donc on avait tout ça, donc chacun dans son style a trouvé son public.
Les contraintes sanitaires pour les troupes, pour les spectateurs, comment elles ont été vécues? Est-ce que c'était une édition éprouvante?
Ça a été éprouvant.
Raven learned how to control the Hulk and, you know, use the Hulk in the right way. Save that for you know, meet competitions and things like that, so that, you know, Raven could, you know, have her fun and be able to deal with things the right way.
Have just been killed, to be perfectly frank, and there's others that are soaring. Where does Threads fit?
Yeah, so you know what? So we're in an industry where we rely on people to go out, right? We want them to be going to work, we want them to be going to events, and obviously that wasn't happening. But pretty early on during the pandemic, like I would say January or February 2020, because our factories in Italy and they were one of those countries that were first hit by the pandemic, we sort of saw firsthand of what was going on, and we decided to use some of our manufacturing capacity to make reusable masks. And this was way before any recommendations were given by the Canadian government. We sort of just made a bet and said, you know what, let's just do this. You know, we have a gut feeling that this is going to be really big. So luckily we were...
Before the recommendations came from the Canadian government. So December 21st, we knew that the Public Health Agency of Canada was already on the ground in Wuhan, China, investigating a particularly contagious form or deadly form, whatever, of pneumonia. Which is one of those words that doesn't mean anything. It's like schizophrenia is a blanket diagnosis. Pneumonia is not like a specific bacteria or virus. Like it's. Never mind. I'm going off a tangent, off of a rant.
As of today, the federal government has run out of the legal authority to borrow money. The debt ceiling that was suspended because of the pandemic expired last night. Now Congress will have to renew it or find extraordinary measures to finance the government. A day after it reported the most new daily cases of the coronavirus since the start of the pandemic, Florida has now broken a new record for current hospitalizations, with 10,207 people hospitalized. That's more than the previous record set a year ago. And a ship full of wine was found off the coast of Sicily, but the wine is old, some 2,000 years old. Officials say they hope the find will tell them more about the trade routes in the Roman era. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News.
To be more of a unisex brand instead of just female only.
You've been covering tights for 40
website,
minutes.
We don't use the words like women really when we're referring to tights. You know, we want to be an inclusive brand for all, and also we just want to be a part of a movement that really brings to light
clowns and bicycle couriers
or genderless fashion.
Clowns that happen to be bicycle
that is
couriers.
Something that is making big waves right now. You know, you see celebrities, you know, A-list celebrities like Harry Styles or A$AP Rocky on the covers of these big name magazines like Vogue and GQ wearing, you know, pieces of clothing that have traditionally been deemed like feminine, right? And I think this is a really pivotal time for the entire fashion industry.
So that comes all the way back to Puff Daddy putting the extra 2 inches on the waistline of every pair of pants and spelling niggas with an S, which had never been done before, because if you write it backwards, it says sagging. It's saggy jeans. We don't sag our jeans. They're baggy. They're not saggy. You've got the loose spot in the wrong place. I don't need my ass hanging out. I need to make sure my dick doesn't keep banging into the crotch of my denim. How feminine was that sound?
At Vail, Calvin Royal III will perform a crowd pleaser.
Que signe son premier succès dans cette compétition et met fin à la série du PSG vainqueur des 8 dernières éditions.
So we do have just a few lingering showers in Burlington and Oakville, and some more rain that could impact the evening, sweeping in from cottage country. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Temperatures tonight dropping down to 13. Tomorrow sunny and 25, and then sun and cloud, and really comfortable for Tuesday. Also 25 degrees. Right now it's 20 at Pearson, 20 downtown, and tonight's overnight low is 13.
680 News Time, 5:43.
Tesla is delaying the launch of its electric pickup truck.
You'll have to wait until next year to get a closer look at the trapezoid-resembling Tesla Cybertruck. The electric vehicle maker has pushed back the launch date of the edgy pickup to 2022 due to limited availability of battery cells and global supply chain challenges. But Tesla says the Cybertruck is still making progress. Just last week, Elon Musk admitted the polarizing design could be a total flop, but said he loves it so much he doesn't even care, and the company's received so many pre-orders that it's just stopped counting them. This update on the Cybertruck came from Tesla's latest earnings report.
We stopped counting them.
Bullshit. $23 million Bitcoin impairment charge related to its crypto investment that as of March was worth $2.5 billion. I'm Stuart McGinn.
Wait a second. He gets to write off losing money on something that lost money because he opened his fat mouth about it. Doesn't want to gain any money. You know exactly to the penny how much money this guy's got, but they're not counting how many pre-orders, which is an order. Like, it's a pre-order. Like, okay, well, everybody's order is a pre-order till the product is. What's the difference between a pre-order and a back order? Put that pre-order on back order. You know exactly how much money he lost off Bitcoin, but you don't know how many trucks he's selling. Oh, we just stopped counting. Yeah, there's a stop counting at what, 0? We got so many until they stop coming in. Oh, it's one of those songs that you get sick of hearing.
Prevailing stereotype in ballet. 4 years into his tenure at ABT, he was understudying a lot. He considered leaving.
I began to ask myself, I would love to dance more. I've always loved to dance, and I'm not dancing. I'm watching on the sidelines.
That year, though, he won a prestigious dance scholarship. And Royal says it was when he leaned more into who he is.
And excitement for many people.
Okay, see, that was KCRW. All things considered. The one about the tights was there, 640.
Stouffville.
Talk 640, Talk News, Talk Radio, whatever the fuck, News Talk. Oh, that's a different one. But then here we got the gay music, right?
Machst du das? Ich weiß. Die anderen Weiber hier sind abgefuckt, weil du eine gute Kiste irgendwas auf dem Kasten hast. Ich weiß. Auf dein Instagram-Foto.
Habibi's not a fucking German word, eh? I'm drawing but I'm gonna leave it. Fuck it. I'm gonna just check out of this because I don't see. One more challenge, just one.
Inspire someone else.
No.
Registered therapist Yona Bud Saturdays at 10 p.m. as he offers to assist you in dealing with addiction, mental health challenges, and more. Road to Recovery with your host, Yona Bud. Saturdays at 10 p.m. only on 640 Toronto. Insightful, engaging, intelligent. Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Where is this going to go?
Welcome back to the Joel Matlin Entrepreneur Show. Once again, here's Joel Matlin.
We're chatting with Xenia Chen, founder of Threads, a direct-to-consumer hosiery and tights brand for both men and women. Now, Xenia, what entrepreneurial lessons have you learned from doing all this, starting a business in 2017, 2018, when you made it official? What lessons could you share with our listeners that stand out?
Yeah, lots of lessons for sure. So I think, number one for aspiring entrepreneurs, I think I would say try to start as soon as you can and just know that there's never going to be a perfect time to start. And I don't mean, you need to quit your full-time job tomorrow or anything like that. But I see a lot of people who, they know that they want to start their own business, but they say things like, oh, but I need to spend 5 years working at a corporation, or, I need to work for someone else for 2 years at a startup before I can start my own business. I'm just going to say that, there's no training, whether it's formal at university or at a workplace, that will prepare you for entrepreneurship. So the best
You just got to switch it around. And instead of, I got to hand money to people, I got to hand money to people, I got to hand money to people, you got to switch it around to where you don't hand them nothing until they give you money.
You know, there are several moments in the series where we watch your whole body disappear inside the barrel of a wave and then come out in the spray. You know, I've been wondering since I started watching this, what it looks like when you're on the inside. Are you able to kind of take in the moment, or does it pass too quickly?
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's like time stands still. You can feel your heart beating. You can almost hear it at times, and it's like you're in your own little world.
How many people in Hawaii, any of these surfing places are fucked up on meth.
Quick, and you're looking out of the hole, trying to make it back out into the world. And at times you get so deep, and there's a curve in the barrel, and you can't see out. And you know, I think all of us surfers are happy place, the place we like more than anywhere on the wave is in the barrel. And so I named my son, he's 6 now, his name is Barrel.
That's very poetic. You know, I think one of the things that really struck me about this was that often we're used to seeing photos of surfers or even videos from the outside. But in this series, there's just this amazing footage throughout.
Syringes
Nicht nur einer Frau, die Nebel schimmern. Wenn ich so tue, dann ist überall. Aber Taschen starten, jederzeit. Nur im Juli, Lunge, schwarzer Schnee ist weiß. Komm, wir laden nach von Ladies sein. Gut passiert, bleibt das pur in die Zeit. Keine Peite, aus dem Kopf leben. Immer mit seiner Nase, und muss der WhatsApp. Ganze Woche gesündigt, da wird dann sonntags bin. Geld im Shit, das Hunger, dafür keine Freunde spüren. Gerade nicht begegnet, da draußen, sie sehen mich an, sagen, ich lebe in den Traum. Jedes Mal krieg ich von neuem.
This is good. As I'm ending the shit, you start dumping and dumping and dumping. Right. You are fucking retarded, but look at this, half a screen. Oh, here we go. Yes, as I'm shutting it down, you just bombard it with bad data. What happened to the music? I didn't turn that off. You are pathetic.
Das wollte ich von neuem gepredigt, das geht nicht, sie sagen, Junge, wach auf, wach auf, wach auf, wach auf, wach auf, wach auf, Get Judy on the beat. Hey, hey. Hoje só vendo me diz, revolta overseas. Se vou mais de velha, nem a garra via sleep. Vezes vai de velha no além. Vezes vai de velha no além.
Du wirst das sein, du mich siehst. Je boss overseas. Sie wollen meine Quelle, nie a garra via sleep. Vezes vai die Welle nur liegt. Vezes vai die Welle nur liegt. Ey, yo, sag mal Aquavin. Je war auf dem Beat. Ich bin überflutet, Baby, Harry King Katrina. Das hier ist ein Blockbuster und ganz bestimmt kein Team. Charlotte Nino Brown, bitch, ich bin ein Brothers Key. Ey, ho, ich habe keine Zeit für deine Insta-Challenge. Ich will Legendary Status, so wie Johnny Lennon. Check mein Outfit, bitch, ich trippe, ho, ich serve auf Wellen. Volles Magazin, ich shoote wie ne Mac 11. Guck auf einmal, wirst du klein, genau wie Mickey Mouse. Denn ich bin Boss, genau wie Ricky Ross. Die Stadt ist unter Wasser, geh nicht ohne Surfboard raus. Du kannst nicht weiter stoppen, bitch, mit deinem Fake-Account. Ey, du wirst das, wenn du mich siehst. Drip aus overseas. Sie wollen meine Quelle, Niagara, wie es fließt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. Du wirst das, wenn du mich siehst. Drip aus overseas. Sie wollen meine Quelle, Niagara, wie es fließt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. Oh, Elias ist der Greatest, ich bin undisputed. Steppe ich ans Mic, ist das wie wenn Curry shootet. Steh ich in der Booth, glaub mir wird der Shit zu Dusche. Zeig mir einen, der so drippt, man, dass er Wasser blutet. Zu viel Drip in den Pics, Baby Raindrop. Noch ein Hit und ein Take-Off. Ich bin Savage, jetzt um Euros oder Pesos. So singe trotzdem für die Chicks, als wäre ich Nate Dogg. Dein Bruder fragt nicht wie, Drip wie Wasserski. Dieses Sickly war Hater, Baby RIP. Ich komm von überall, ich ändere meine Strategie. Erschreck dich nicht, wenn du mich siehst, man, dass das Wasser fließt. Ey, du wirst das, wenn du mich siehst. Drip aus overseas. Sie wollen meine Quelle, Niagara, wie es fließt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. Du wirst das, wenn du mich siehst. Drip aus overseas. Sie wollen meine Quelle, Niagara, wie es fließt. British halt die Welle nur liegt. British halt die Welle nur liegt.
Lass kein Auge auf mich, bis es schließt. Hol die Feuer und zünde an ihn. Die schwarzen Wolken kommen nicht von dem Brief. Mein Film ist viel zu der Ruf nach Scorsese. Hol der Tarantino. Vater befällt damit Melody Flows. Wir kennen die Tod, Memory Tod, Tel Aviv Not. Sie war es weg und ihr Enemy Rot. Das Leben will nicht zum Million. Insta sagt alles verloren. Die Hater sagen sich nicht hoch, aber niemals ich bin genug für mein Brot. Suche den richtigen Ort, nur für einen mickrigen Lohn. Man sieht die Geschichten im Rot, lass mir die Augen doch ruhen, ich lasse nicht ab von dem Thron. Jubel kommt erst, wenn ich lauf, ja, die Hoffnung, dass ich verkauft, ja, Jubel im Kopf jeden Tag, ja, das bedeutet, ich lebe nicht schlaf, ja, das bedeutet, ich lebe nicht schlaf, ja, heute steht richtiger Tag. Nein, Jubel kommt erst, wenn ich lauf, ja, Jubel auf den Video, hart, nicht uns ehrlich Kugeln auf mich und ehrlich ist mir richtig, ganz egal. Ja.
That's fantastic.
It's company policy to conduct a police background check. Is that going to be a problem?
Don't allow another job opportunity slip away. Contact Pardons and Waivers of Canada, PWOC, and get your criminal record expunged. PWOC. Record removal made easy. 416-498-7111. 416-498-7111. Online, pwoc.com.
If you could buy a Saturday,
you can do it directly with the government.
How much would it be worth to you?
1-800-GOT-JUMP can sell you 2 free Saturdays a year.
Give us a call and we'll bring them right over.
The average family spends
unbeatable using the science of war, with fun stories and insightful breakdown of famous battles. Tune in to Decoding the Art of War on Spotify.
Oh.
Are you interested in learning Chinese? I always tell my students that listening is the key to mastering the language. Check out Takeaway Chinese, where you can start learning the language quickly and enjoyably, no matter if you're a rookie or a sophisticated Chinese learner.
You just called him a rookie.
There is definitely something that
won't be beat. See nofrills.ca/flyer for details. Don't just know the story. Understand it. This is CFMJ Global News Radio 640 Toronto. A chorus.
Entertainment.
After she criticized
Chorus
coaches.
Entertainment Company.
I'm asking the International Olympic Committee for help. They're trying to get me out of the country without my permission.
The councillors plea to shut it down, saying it's become an inconvenience for residents in the city. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Kamil Karamali. More on that story in just a moment, but we begin with Olympic history. Two of Canada's biggest stars, both from Toronto,
listing in the United States to disclose more information. The CSRC said it's an inevitable choice to strengthen regulatory cooperation between the Chinese and U.S. capital markets, which are important markets in the world, are increasingly interconnected. Su Bingtian has become the first Chinese man to qualify for the Olympic men's 100-meter final. Su clocked a personal best of 9.83 seconds to secure his spot in the final.
Government accepts its conditions for a ceasefire. General Sadkan Gebretensai told the BBC that Tigrayan fighters wouldn't leave the neighbouring regions of Afar and Amhara until they achieved their objectives. Mary Harper reports.
General Sadkan repeated time and again that the Tigrayans would not give up the fight until the siege was lifted and ceasefire conditions met. Only then could the team set a Canadian record, swimming the medal.
The country will hold new general elections in the second half of 2023. The chair of the newly formed State Administration Council made the announcement during a televised address to the nation on Sunday. Min Liang also stressed the need to create conditions to hold free and fair multi-party general elections. Malaysia has announced that undocumented migrants can get vaccinated without appointment papers in the Greater Kuala Lumpur area. The government is aiming to give all adults in the capital and surrounding states at least one shot of a COVID-19 vaccine by the end of this month. Riyad Mauser reports.
There are likely more than 2 million undocumented foreigners in Malaysia. Like Bangladeshi construction worker Shaukat, many became undocumented after being duped by unscrupulous agents or employers. They live in constant fear of being detained and now of COVID-19.
I'm terrified of the virus. If I get sick, there will be no one to take care of me. And if I cannot work, what will happen to my family back home?
As early as last year, government...
On Thursday, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington is working with its partners to consider the next steps. Tehran has denied carrying out the attack. Here's our World Affairs correspondent, Paul Adams.
The truth is, Iran and Israel are engaged in an undeclared shadow war, with each side attacking the other's shipping. Israel is doing...
Right.
Unfortunately, the journey hopefully will continue. I mean, she's 21 years old. She has aspirations for Paris and maybe even one after that. So, you know, I'm not trying to belittle it.
To all Greek citizens and unnecessary work or travel, saying that there is a high risk of wildfires during the dangerous heat wave that is expected to peak early next week. The Hellenic National Meteorological Service has issued warnings for most of the country, with temperatures expected to rise above 40 degrees Celsius, climbing as high as 45 early next week. This is Greece's third bout of extreme heat this summer and could be the most severe. Many here in Athens have been seeking respite from the scorching weather, heading to air-conditioned centers or water fountains, while others went to nearby beaches hoping to cool down. But what worries authorities the most is the possibility of wildfires. That's why they ordered additional fire patrols and infrastructure maintenance inspections, while also urging people to show the highest degree of responsibility and cooperation.
China's central bank says the country will continue to maintain stable macro policies and refrain from flood-like stimulus measures. The People's Bank of China has pledged to keep a prudent monetary policy that focuses on supporting the real economy. The central bank says will also ramp up efforts to improve the green finance system. And that's the news. I'm Sui.
He says it's finally cracked the conundrum. That'll be music to the ears of Europe's car makers. They're hungry for lithium for batteries to power their electric vehicles, and they're keen to find sources outside China. But environmental campaigners are concerned by Serbia's recent record on pollution.
The government in Madagascar says it has arrested more people in connection with a failed attempt to assassinate President Ange Rizzuel last month. The Attorney General says they include 12 serving military and police personnel, including 5 generals, bringing to 21 the number under investigation. Those detained earlier included both Malagasy and foreign citizens. Bars and clubs in Portugal are staying open late into the night for the first time since March last year, as the government eases its coronavirus restrictions. Many have taken the opportunity to serve drinks until 2 a.m, despite it being a Sunday, but customers must enjoy the revelry sitting down. BBC News.
Thanks very much. You're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service with Oliver Conway. A Belarusian athlete is under Japanese police protection after officials from Belarus tried to force her to fly home from the Olympics. Kristina Simonovskaya, who is supposed to compete in the women's 200 meters on Monday, said she was taken to Tokyo Airport against her will after complaining about the negligence of her coaches. She is reported to be seeking asylum and has asked the Olympic authorities to step in.
I'm asking the International Olympic Committee for help. There's pressure on me, and they're trying to get me out of the country without my permission. So I'm asking the IOC to get involved in this.
Olympic officials say they've spoken to Kristina Simonovskaya directly and will determine the next steps in the coming days. Some athletes in Belarus lost their jobs and were even jailed last year for joining the protests over the discredited presidential election there. Our sports news correspondent Alex Capstick is outside the police station at Tokyo Airport.
The story is that she had criticised national team coaches, and after that she was ordered to go home. They arrived at her room, told her to pack her bags, and they say she was forcibly taken to the airport. When she got here, she refused to get onto the aeroplane. She said that she was frightened to go home, that she was being forced to leave the country without her permission. We're not quite sure what happened then. It's all a little bit unclear, although it seems as though she did go into the police station, she sought their help, and she has asked the International Olympic Committee for help. The IOC have said that they're seeking clarification from the Belarusian Olympic Committee.
Yeah, now we know that some prominent athletes in Belarus were jailed for joining those protests over the controversial...
Youth are still vulnerable to the virus and its potentially long-lasting effects. Well,
One in three goes crazy. I've got sick 3 times.
That didn't stop some people from getting into the spirit.
Oh, I'm fine right now. But this happened the other 2 times
that
too.
Was the scene at Scarborough Town Center as it played host to Carnival Weekend's grand finale. Now, those who attended could enjoy some cultural entertainment, keep the spirit of the carnival alive. There were lots of Caribbean food to choose from, a Caribbean beer tent, live music, as well as dancers and masqueraders.
We've had an opportunity to bring together our artists, local restaurants, vendors, and pull together some carnival flavor and bring some, excitement and energy back to the city, even in a small way.
Toronto Caribbean Carnival partnered with Street Eats Market for this weekend's event. And time for our first look at the forecast. Here's weather specialist Carla Wasacki. Hi, Carla.
Thanks, Camille. I hope you enjoyed your Sunday. I know it wasn't the nicest for a holiday. Right now, we're still sitting at 21 degrees in the city. Low-lying clouds sitting overhead, as you can see from our harbor cam shot over downtown Toronto. Radar and satellite making dealing with some rain off and on, very isolated.
Very isolated.
计划 is plan.
And
there's another 计划. Do you remember how to say that in Chinese? 打算.
That's one.
Yes, 打算. And the thing is, both 计划 and 打算 can be used as nouns and as verbs. However, 计划 is a little more official, a little more appropriate in workplaces, which means that you cannot really say 出差打算怎么写. So, 打算, in a really colloquial way. You don't put it with these relatively high register words.
Okay.
So, 出差计 you plan on writing your business trip plan. So,
at the time, but a few days later, while I was posing for the portrait, I heard Her Majesty whispering to my mother at the other end of the room. I saw that Her Majesty was holding a photograph in her hands, which she showed to my mother, at the same time asking whether my mother considered him good-looking. My mother answered, "Not very."
They cannot go outside, there's no electricity, there's no food, people will die without food, without water, and the Taliban literally walking the streets and looking for the people who have worked for the Afghan government and for the British government, and we haven't heard anything positive from the British government at the moment.
Best news offering, including national and local news and 24-hour live stream. Now you can watch global news with your morning coffee or lunch or really any meal and stay informed about your PM or MP or MVP on demand or with 24/7 live streams for free on the global.
I'm my own MP.
Crackle of gunfire. Oh, too close. But civilians are also standing their ground. This man is said to be the head of Herat's provincial council. Don't waste your bullets, he says. Take careful aim. And old warlords are back too to take on the Taliban.
What?
White-bearded Commander Ismail Khan fought Soviet forces in the 80s, Taliban in the 90s. We're doing our
for
best
him,
to
it's the last
suppress
4
the
years
enemy
have just been
so they can't enter the city.
one
he says.
long video game.
I call on the people to support
He's
us.
got the high
especially those
score,
who are
motherfucker.
armed
He's playing
to
off the
resist
same
the
quarter.
terrorists. But the Taliban are at their strongest since their defeat nearly 2 decades ago after the US-led invasion. It's a moment of reckoning for Afghan forces, a moment of risk for the very future of Afghanistan.
Least you said, reporting from Kabul. Holidaymakers have been rescued by boat from beaches in southern Turkey, where the emergency services are fighting wildfires for a 5th day. Thousands of people have fled to safety. At least 8 deaths have been reported. Angus Crawford is monitoring developments.
How many of them got trampled?
Red clouds of smoke hang over the beach as tourists and local people queue to get onto boats to take them to safety. Behind the seafront hotels in the city of Bodrum, forest fires burn across the hillsides. 8 people have died since Wednesday in what are Turkey's worst fires for 10 years. Susan Dogan is a British expatriate living in a village near Marmaris. She's watching as the flames get closer to...
Helicopters that started at 6 o'clock this morning, just dropping water on the flames, trying to put them out. But it's such a dense forest and it's mountainous, so it's very difficult for them to get in the right places. Plus, there's so many fires, they just probably don't know where they go first.
More than 100 wildfires have broken out.
Hotbed in the COVID-19 pandemic, recording over 21,000 new cases in one day, its highest number ever. Nationwide, new cases are now averaging more than 70,000 a day.
Patients are showing up sick today and last week, and unfortunately, this is going to continue
for at least another 6 weeks.
Universal Resort and SeaWorld are now joining Walt Disney World and asking visitors to wear masks indoors.
Welcome back.
But Florida's Republican governor is rejecting any statewide rules.
There will be no restrictions and no mandates in the state of Florida.
But with the Delta variant quickly spreading, President Joe Biden says new federal mandates may happen.
In all probability,
the pace of vaccinations did increase over 20% last week, but experts are frustrated. There are still 100 million unvaccinated Americans.
We've really got to get those people to change their minds, make it easy for them, convince them, do something to get them to be vaccinated, because they are the ones that are propagating this outbreak.
Dr. Fauci says things will get worse with this latest surge, warning of more pain and suffering.
You can't say that because you're not testing vaccinated people. You're also telling not to wear masks. Who do you think's spreading it?
The Australian state of
It's the same thing with blaming little kids at school for spreading it to teachers.
So that makes a lot of sense. The snap decision was made after the state recorded 9 new COVID cases. The government says it has to go hard and go early to stop the spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant. The outbreak is linked to a 17-year-old Brisbane high school student who tested positive on Thursday. The number of wildfires ravaging British Columbia has climbed as officials brace for potential lightning that could spark even more fires. BC's Wildfire Service reported 241 fires burning Saturday, but that number climbed as the day went on. But the number still remains lower than the 300 reported fires that were active last week. Heat warnings remain in effect across the province, but temperatures are expected to cool. Chinese-Canadian pop artist Chris Wu has been detained by police in China on suspicion of rape. In a statement, Beijing police said they received information of the artist repeatedly luring young women. Wu was accused by a teenager of having sex with her while she was drunk. The teenager said 7 other women, some of whom said they were under 18, reached out to her to share similar stories. Wu, a Canadian citizen, has denied the accusation.
Oh, that puts him in a
Well, today marks 40 years since the launch of a history-making TV station.
He's found guilty there, he's found guilty here, too.
MTV first went on the air at midnight on this day in 1981. At the time, the channel created a solution for music fans to find the most popular songs of the period in one place. The array of bands exposed listeners and viewers to new sounds, changing pop culture in ways that can still be felt today. And to a story now of an Ontario man who's helping a young Syrian refugee with the ways of the world. Sam Haupt has more on the bond being developed between two strangers.
He's optimistic, he's bright, everything's cheerful about him, and he's just an amazing guy with a very positive outlook.
Retired OPP constable David McNabb never thought he would be teaching English, let alone to someone halfway across the globe. It was in a bird-watching Facebook group of all places where McNabb stumbled upon Rashid Hassan, who was seeking advice.
He was asking for a little guidance. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for a sponsor. And he was looking for nothing except help and information, and he was being attacked.
While some believed it was just a scam, McNabb read Hassan's story and says he was grabbed.
I got a voice call that night. The first thing that struck me was he was exactly as he had posted. He was a young man alone, and he struck me as very frightened. So here he was being attacked by Canadians, which that surprised me.
Rashid fled Syria at the age of 11 and was separated from his family and has not been able to find them since. McNabb says the Facebook post was a cry for help.
We spoke our English and our Arabic back and forth, and it didn't mean much, but yet it connected us. And then he started to cry, and I probably did too. And it was just the relief of connecting with someone on the other side of the world, I think, and finding some friendliness among the hatred.
So the two men decided they would communicate regularly through phone calls and video chats to work on his English.
He's been writing things out like he's in school. And he'll probably hold up a sheet of paper with his English sentences on it that he's been working on his own.
What about French?
And I realized what an investment in paper is when you're only making $300 a month.
Rashid has expressed his desire to seek refuge in Canada, but McNabb has been upfront with him about how hard it is to immigrate or get a sponsorship.
It's such a big undertaking. You need a team of people, and you need funds. And I didn't want him to feel misled. I didn't want to get his hopes up.
McNabb and his wife have been working hard to get Hassan to Peterborough. A GoFundMe is currently being set up, but private donations are now open and are going towards Rashid's future living expenses.
I was reluctant to ask people for help. And, there's so many good causes, and you don't want to put pressure on your friends. But when I did post, I started to see the response, and it touched me. People are sending messages and welcoming Rashid and reaching out to him and sending donations, and I'm so thrilled because it's more than I ever hoped for.
The response from friends, family, and strangers has overshadowed the initial hatred that led to this new friendship. Dan Haupt, Global News.
Low-lying cloud and much cooler today. These are a look at the highs that we saw on this Sunday, but holiday
up until now. And of course, those car makers are under heavy pressure from lawmakers to produce zero emissions cars. The internal combustion engine is going to be history, we hope, within the decade. So having a European source for car battery lithium is going to be crucial.
They said that in
That's it for now.
1897
From the
or
newsroom.
something too, eh?
BBC World Service. I'm Ian Williams, and this is Sporting Witness. In this episode, we go back to the 2012 London Olympics and the story of sprinter Zamzam Farah. Having grown up in war-torn Somalia, merely reaching the Games was a huge personal achievement. But for Zamzam, taking part in the greatest show on earth would come at a cost. It's the evening of Friday, the 27th of July, 2012, and excitement is...
I can't time travel right now.
Indicated for measuring interstitial fluid glucose levels in people aged 4 years and older with diabetes mellitus. Always read and follow the label. Fingerprints are required if readings do not match symptoms or expectations.
Planning a summer adventure?
Hon, I got the blanket, picnic basket, and sun umbrella.
Maybe you're in search of a local gem. Great, I have the sunscreen and maps. Or maybe you're heading out to the lake.
I've got the canoe, paddles, and water skis. What else do we need?
A bigger car? Before you go on your adventure, make sure you have the right auto insurance. Get a complimentary policy review from CAA Insurance, even if you're not a CAA member. Visit CAANEO.ca for details. Auto insurance is underwritten by CAA Insurance Company.
We're at our best when we stand together.
That's when we make the...
Tell us about the sprinter.
as who you are.
But first, she has the opening ceremony to drink in. In particular, one unexpected performer.
There was a comedian I used to watch in Somalia.
Mr. Bean.
Yep. He was playing piano, and I was like, no, that's not true.
Born in March 1991 in the Somali capital Mogadishu, Zamzam was drawn to sports at an early age. Initially, she played football. Not everyone approved.
I was a tomboy. People were trying to push me back, like, girls cannot do things, you need to have a family and be a mom, and that's not what I wanted.
For Zamzam, the sight of government and militia troops was a regular occurrence. But from 2009, a frightening new chapter began in the Somali civil war.
Al-Shabaab, a radical group with links to Al-Qaeda, has seized control of much of Somalia.
I still remember seeing people that dying without help, with no emergency service, with no medication.
And how the outside world seems powerless to stop the carnage.
I can see you're actually crying. And that's the memories of you seeing people dying in front of you?
Yep. We met a car that has been exploded. It was a family. We walked past their body parts laying on the floor.
Al-Shabaab recruits march at a passing out parade in northern Mogadishu. Their aim, seize control of all Somalia and take the battle to the west.
They don't care about nothing. They're ready to die. All you can see is the eyes, the red eyes. When you see them, you can feel a horror in your heart.
It was against this backdrop that Zamzam first fell in love with running, having one day been invited to take part in an 800-meter race. She finished 4th.
I was so happy because it was my first time trying. And I was like, okay, if you came number 4 without training, what can you do when you train?
But in Mogadishu, training was not so easy. Zamzam and her fellow runners would have to brave what had become known as the Road of Death.
If you are on the road of death, you're gonna see a checkpoint, destroyed buildings, destroyed roads. Sometimes you might come across blood on the road. They firing bullets every single minute. When I run, I forgot things. Well, I know that I'm happy, that I'm enjoying the life.
See, I'm the person that's wondering, where do they get the money for all these bullets?
The sad part is, like, when you finish, reality comes back.
But
in Toronto, Tuesday, sunshine 27.
2012 Olympics.
I did not believe the day that I got the news that I'm going to represent the country. That was my dream.
It meant a trip to London and a stay in the athletes' village.
The best life ever. I had training on the same track. Usain Bolt, Mo Farah. I got my own chef, a Somali chef. We also get a massage. There were hairdressers.
In the heats of the women's 400 meters, Zamzam found herself drawn against the defending champion, Christina Horrigu of Great Britain.
When I met her in the warm-up area, I was like, oh my God, who are you running with today? I was like, no, this is not true.
A sellout crowd of 80,000 people welcomed Zamzam onto the track. But for a runner not experienced on the international stage, the noise proved to be a problem as the starting pistol was fired.
I didn't hear it because of the crowd. I just get up when they run. And I was like, oh my God, you messed it up.
As the other 6 runners surged ahead, Zamzam had more problems. Not only was she running covered up on a warm, muggy day, the race coincided with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which meant she was fasting during daylight hours.
I didn't do the time that I wanted to do because of my condition, but I wanted to do it and feel the pain.
America's Francina McCrory cruised home to win in a time of 50.78 seconds.
Why are you telling us this story then?
With everyone else across the line,
Zamzam
Zamzam was out on the track all by herself for 27 seconds.
Somalia's Zamzam Farah almost going backwards in the heats. To be fair, her shoelaces were undone.
Honestly, the crowd was amazing. Supporting me.
Ask them to come to Africa and run the road you walked down.
27 seconds. They're like, I feel that I was the winner.
Get away from my
Although Zamzam's time of 1 minute and 20 seconds was a full 15 seconds slower than anybody else that morning, journalists from around the world picked up the story of her run and the crowd reaction to it. But in Somalia, the reaction was very different, with Al-Shabaab claiming as a woman she had brought shame on her religion simply by competing.
Before it was like, I'm just laying, but now I crossed the line.
Zamzam faced death threats and her pictures were shared online and across social media.
I was like, what did I do? Why do I deserve it? This? When you go back, you will die. You have to face the truth.
Even before she could board a plane, her family in Somalia was attacked. In an emotional phone call, Zamzam's mother told her daughter not to come home.
My mom said to me, no matter where you are in the world, as long as I know that you are alive, that's all matters.
With no money and no ability to speak English, Zamzam was reliant on help from London's Somali community. A distant cousin provided support while she went through the asylum procedure. 3 months later, she was granted leave to stay in the UK, the country she now calls home.
I set an example for other girls, and I showed them not to give up in life and do what you wanted to do the most. Girls are more known in sports in back home. There was none before me.
Looking back, was it worth all the sacrifice?
Yeah, I did what I love, and I'm so proud of that.
Zamzam Farah speaking to me, Ian Williams, for this episode of Sporting Witness.
Distribution of the BBC.
Japanese kimonos. The poodle's owner runs a pet accessory shop on a popular street renowned for its souvenir stores. The seventh-generation store owner designs the kimonos herself and has been selling accessories for pets since the 1970s. Now, the owner says she wanted customers to get a better sense of Japanese heritage. And before we go tonight, it was an unusual rescue for firefighters on southern Vancouver Island over the weekend.
What are we doing? 1, 2, 3, go! Okay.
The Saanich fire captain and the members of his platoon were dispatched to a mud bog where a horse had been reported trapped. And the crew managed to pull the animal out of its predicament. It was exhausted but uninjured. No word on how the horse got stuck.
It walked in.
Well, that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. For the latest news and information, you can log on anytime to globalnews.ca or also stream us anytime on the Global TV app. Hope you have a great night.
On this Sunday night, Canada's medal count grows. 2 more bronze medals in one of the most exciting days of the Games.
I think we're just getting started.
As Canada's Penny Oleksiak makes history, COVID-19 takes aim at the unprotected as a 4th wave looms.
The next wave, I think, will be largely in children.
More political turmoil in Myanmar and allegations the military is weaponizing COVID-19. And Canada marks its first Emancipation Day.
Don't give up the fight.
And a push to engage more black communities in politics.
Global National with Robin Gill. Reporting tonight, Eric Sorensen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Canadians had plenty to cheer for at the Olympics today.
A vote on the final text is expected towards the end of the week. The US and Britain say they believe Iran was responsible for an attack on an Israeli-operated tanker off the Omani coast on Thursday. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said the US was working with regional governments on an appropriate response.
That was only Thursday.
Niger's defense ministry says that 15 soldiers have been killed in what it called a terrorist attack in the southwest of the country near the border with Burkina Faso. It said soldiers in the Torodi area were ambushed and then hit by an improvised explosive device. Rescue ships have picked up more than 700 migrants from the Mediterranean this weekend. Most migrants seeking to reach Europe set off from the Libyan coast, hoping to reach Italy. More than 900 people have died this year. The Czech Republic and Poland have offered to help a Belarusian sprinter who was ordered home from the Tokyo Olympics by her country's Olympic officials after she criticized her coaches. Kristina Tsimanouskaya is under Japanese police protection. Bars and clubs in Portugal are staying open late into the night for the first time since March last year, as the government eases its coronavirus restrictions on opening hours. Plenty have taken the opportunity to drink until 2 a.m. BBC News.
Hello, I'm Claudia Hammond, and this is Health Check from the BBC, the show with the latest global health news. Now, in some parts of the world, you can win a cruise or even a cow if you come forward for a COVID vaccine. Could financial incentives succeed in getting the minority of people who are cautious about getting vaccinated to do it?
24-hour butler service, complimentary dining, exclusive use of their pool and the gym, etc.
Is it possible to be too fit? And does it annoy you when in some places doctors get called providers and us patients are customers? And Matt Fox,
who may have missed Andre de Grasse. The Markham, Ontario sprinter ran a personal best, finishing in 9.89 seconds. Just like in Rio, de Grasse earned himself a bronze medal. The 100-meter sprint is a feature Olympic event, but with the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, retired, no one was sure who would end up on the podium. Gold went to Italy, silver
What about
to
Oscar
the U.S.
Pistorius?
DeGrasse is the first man to win a medal at these games for Canada, and he could pick up another one. The 200-meter sprint is on Tuesday, and back in 2016, he won silver in that event in Rio. Crystal Gavancing, Global News, London.
Canada's medal count is now 14, and that puts us in 14th place in the overall.
Wow.
Ways to socially distance, and so once the virus is introduced, it's very hard to contain.
And so where was this study done that has looked at the impact that vaccination can have in prison?
So this one was done in Rhode Island, in the prison system there. And what they did was they started a program in which they were surveilling their population, doing weekly PCR testing. And they looked at the period after the vaccines had been introduced and were monitoring both the staff and the people who were incarcerated to look at how often those who were vaccinated were getting infected.
And what did they find? Did it make a difference?
So it's a little difficult to say for sure because we don't have a comparison population who was unvaccinated. But if we look at the rates of infection in the vaccinated population of both the staff and those who were incarcerated, amongst about 9,000 tests administered to the vaccinated incarcerated population, there were only 20 positive, so well below 1%. And of the 4,000 odd tests given to the vaccinated staff, only 7 were positive, again, well below 1%. There clearly was some infection, and so in a population that is living in such close quarters and has limited ability to socially distance, you would expect a lot of transmission, at least in the absence of vaccination. So the fact that the rates were so low is a sign that the vaccine is clearly helping.
Well, thanks, Matt. And that research was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Now, outside prison, most people who want to have a vaccine have either had them already if they're lucky.
Concern among medical professionals that ending pandemic protocols too quickly will result in a harder hit from the next wave.
Enough!
It was important for Nisha Bakshi to bring her daughters to the third day of rallies in Alberta, protesting the province's restriction rollback.
Only a few months away from being able to have our kids vaccinated, and so why rushing?
While the physician acknowledges restrictions eventually need to be lifted, she stresses right now just doesn't feel right.
Why are we doing this now? Why are we abandoning testing and tracing? And if we're going to do that, how are we going to mitigate the risk to our children, the risk to the vulnerable population that cannot be vaccinated? And I think a bit more transparency is necessary.
Saskatchewan recently eased its COVID-19 restrictions, and it's now seeing a spike in infections. The province's active cases are climbing, reaching levels not seen in more than a month.
It's sort of like an expression of, wishing that COVID-19 is gone from these provinces, when in fact we may be seeing a beginning of a resurgence.
New Brunswick is already seeing a resurgence of COVID-19 just days after dropping virtually all of its restrictions. But the growing cases in other provinces isn't stopping Newfoundland and Labrador from entering its stage 2 of reopening plan, 15 days ahead of schedule.
We'll be keeping a close eye on things. We'll probably be able to learn from Alberta's experience in this regard.
Despite concerns from across the country, Alberta maintains its chief medical health officer's recommendations are informed by science, not politics. It comes as little comfort to Bakshi.
We aren't there with all of the things that we can be doing to protect our children. So it might be rooted in science, but timing is important.
Sarah Comadina, Global News, Edmonton.
As the Delta variant spreads across the country, experts say we could face a fourth wave in the pandemic. It may not prove as dire as previous waves, but it will target one group in particular, the unvaccinated. And as Karen Lieberman reports, that includes children.
The next wave, I think, will be largely in children.
The prediction should come as no surprise, says this emergency physician who points out this is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and children under 12 aren't yet eligible for the shot.
I think schools are going to be the front lines of this next wave. I don't expect the death tolls to be what they were. I don't expect the hospital usage and ICU occupancies will be what they were.
With over 80% of eligible Canadians now vaccinated with their first dose and approximately 65% fully vaccinated, doctors say the virus is likely to target those who have not had the vaccine at all. And come September,
I suspect that we will see what we've seen in England and what we're seeing in the States and some other countries. I think kids will be a particular focus. We'll see a lot more cases in kids.
These parents are conflicted about whether to vaccinate their 12-year-old daughter.
For kids, I don't know. It's a little bit early for me.
For me, it's better kids get vaccinated and go to school. It's very important to go to school.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford has said a back-to-school plan will be released early in the week and that the province is ready for September. Meantime, the medical officer of health revealed there will be a separate set of rules for students based on their vaccination status.
If you are 2-dose vaccinated plus 14 days, we'll offer you a test if you've been in contact of a high-risk person, so someone that's had ongoing fever and cough or increasing shortness of breath. If you test negative, you can go right back to school, you can go right back to work. If you are not immunized and you've been in contact with a high-risk contact, you'll be off for a minimum of 10 days.
And be subjected to 2 tests. Still, this Toronto mother says she will not be vaccinating her children who are under 12 when they are eligible.
If kids in 12 were like filling up the hospitals and the ICUs, it would be a completely different story, but they're not.
Although children are unlikely to get a severe case of COVID-19, this pediatric infectious disease expert says they do remain vulnerable to the virus and its long-lasting effects.
I've had families where you have healthy young teenagers that get COVID and then they have all the classical long hauler symptoms that adults have.
If they choose not to get the vaccine, she adds, they should learn from home. This mother hopes to avoid that.
He would love to be vaccinated too, and he will be soon, but yeah, he's looking forward to it. He wants to see his friends, he wants to be...
Oh, but yeah, he's looking forward to it. You just made a logic jump there. Remember when they were pushing for all these people to not be allowed to homeschool? And they made up stories. You have to do this test and write this letter and blah, 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 or it's not legal because we made that up.
That doesn't seem to concern the state's governor.
Florida is America's new hotbed in the COVID-19 pandemic, recording over 21,000 new cases in one day, its highest number ever. Nationwide, new cases are now averaging more than 70,000 a day.
Patients are showing up sick today and last week, and unfortunately, this is going to continue for at least another 6 weeks.
Universal Resort and SeaWorld are now joining Walt Disney World and asking visitors to wear masks indoors.
Welcome back.
But Florida's Republican governor is rejecting any statewide rules.
There will be no restrictions and no mandates in the state of Florida.
But with the Delta variant quickly spreading, President Joe Biden says new federal mandates may happen.
In all probability,
the pace of vaccinations did increase over 20% last week, but experts are frustrated there are still 100 million unvaccinated Americans.
We've really got to get those people to change their minds, make it easy for them, convince them, do something to get them to be vaccinated because they are the ones that are propagating this outbreak.
The U.S. is keeping eyes on Israel as it becomes the first country in the world to give booster shots to residents over 60 as the vaccines start to lose effectiveness.
We decided to add this vaccination in order to keep up the level of it that we need in order to fight the Delta variant.
In America, Dr. Fauci says things will get worse with this latest surge, warning of more pain and suffering ahead. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Coming up, Turkey's tourists on the run as deadly wildfires burn toward the beaches.
Were you fired for cause without severance pay? You need employmentlawyer.ca. Most for cause terminations are false, and you are still owed severance. Call Lior Samfiru and get what you're owed. Employmentlawyer.ca.
Rick and Morty are back on Adult Swim, and it's going to be... Wait, shh. It's too quiet.
You skipped quiet.
I didn't skip shit. It's obviously quiet if it's too quiet.
Yeah, but you're supposed to say.
No, it's summer now. It's not quite enough. Rick and Morty, all new tonight at 11 on Adult Swim. Also available on Stack TV. Hi, I'm Dan from Sleep Country's Innovation Lab with a game changer: lifestyle adjustable beds. Your bedroom has become central to your life. Whether you're working, reading, or watching TV, adjustable beds allow you to customize your head and feet positions for maximum comfort and support. Elevate your sleep today. Buy any lifestyle adjustable bed and get 15% back on a Sleep Country promo card. Restrictions apply. See in store or online for details. Sleep well, stay well, Sleep Country.
I gotta tell you, Bob, ever since I found out about Good Food's ready-to-cook meals that they deliver right to your door, I feel a lot less pressure when I'm barbecuing.
How so?
Every week they have 30 new recipes to choose from, and they practically cook themselves. Now everyone thinks I'm the barbecue king.
Boy, those portobello burgers sure smell good.
Right? I've totally taken my barbecue game to the next level, and I'm happy to take all the credit.
Good Food. Eating evolved. Visit makegoodfood.ca. Certain conditions apply. Details on makegoodfood.ca.
Are you faced with a severance offer deadline? You need employmentlawyer.ca. Severance deadlines are irrelevant and are used as a pressure tactic. Make sure that offer is fair before you sign. Call Lior Samfiru and get what you're owed. Employmentlawyer.ca.
Firefighters are battling flames in southern Turkey as wildfires threaten towns and resorts. At least 8 people have died in the fires. Thousands have been evacuated, with panicked tourists and residents fleeing by boat. A heat wave along the Aegean and Mediterranean coasts is being blamed for some of the worst wildfires in a decade. And neighboring Greece isn't being spared. The same heat wave is sparking evacuations. Dozens of homes have been destroyed in several villages. 15 people have been hospitalized for breathing issues from the smoke. Officials say it could get worse. Temperatures in Greece are expected to reach 45 degrees this week. Here in this country, an evacuation order has been issued for a cabin community in the southern interior of BC as dry and windy weather fuels an out-of-control wildfire. People were told to leave Eastgate, south of Princeton, on Saturday as the Garrison Lake fire grew to nearly 8,200 hectares. It's one of more than 90 out-of-control fires in a highly active fire season in the province. As of today, fires have scorched more than 500,000 hectares of land in BC. That far surpasses the 10-year average of 349,000 hectares. Still ahead, the pandemic is worsening the military crisis in Myanmar.
The No Frills Hot Summer Haul event is back with hot days and hot deals. Your grill's getting deals, your cooler's getting deals, your wallet's getting deals. Hot Summer Haul, only until August 4th. No Frills won't be beat. See nofrills.ca/flyer for details.
Marineland is now open for another season of safe outdoor fun for the whole family. Pack a picnic or enjoy a meal at the Hungry Bear. Bring your bathing suits and cool off at the Polar Splash Pad. There are so many safe, fun things to see and do, including 2 new rides. Visit the park this August and your single-day ticket will be upgraded to a Seasons Pass fun card for free. Buy your tickets or learn more online at marineland.ca for your day of outdoor safe family fun. Everyone loves Marineland.
Hey, are you using multiple apps to run your construction jobs and projects? What's up with that? Consolidate all of your one-off apps with SiteMax and lighten up. SiteMax is a simple, powerful construction management platform for the field and office. You get safety, drawings, time cards, photos, daily reporting, and a ton of other features you will use all in one place. Call today and see for yourself. Book your free demo at sitemax.cloud.
License 10349.
Northwood Mortgage. People don't usually sing about their mortgage, but at Northwood Mortgage they do. They sing about lower rates. They sing about greater cash flow. They sing because we help them. You could be singing about your mortgage too. Come on, try it with us. Northwood Mortgage. Come on, try it. Northwood Mortgage. And there you go. Call or visit us today at northwoodmortgage.com.
We're working harder for you.
I'm Sarah Ritchie. I'm a reporter for Global News in Halifax. I was working the day everything changed in Nova Scotia last April. My team has spent the last year asking tough questions about how a gunman disguised as a police officer murdered 22 people over 13 hours. On our podcast, 13 Hours Inside the Nova Scotia Massacre, we examine this tragedy hour by hour. We're learning there's a lot more to this story. Listen to all 13 episodes now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
For a limited time at Pizzaville, order 8 wings or boneless chicken poppers for only $5.99. Order online at pizzaville.ca or dial pound 3636 from your cell.
Afghan forces are in fierce battles with the Taliban as the terror group carries out assaults on 3 major cities. Kandahar, Lashkar-Gah, and Herat have all come under heavy fire. Afghanistan's Ministry of Defense sent hundreds of commandos to Herat in a bid to prevent militants from taking control of the economically important city. The U.S. military is supporting government forces with airstrikes, but the Taliban is rapidly seizing territory throughout the country as the U.S. and NATO troops withdraw after nearly 20 years. The United Nations says more than 300,000 Afghans have fled the fighting, and many are leaving the country after the U.S. began its withdrawal in May. It's been 6 months since Myanmar's military seized control of the country. The head of the regime, who appointed himself prime minister, promises to hold elections 2 years from now. But the Southeast Asian country, also known as Burma, has been in turmoil since the February 1st coup. Protesters have persisted in their calls for the release of democratically elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi in the face of brutal crackdowns on dissent. Now, activists say the military junta is weaponizing COVID-19 against its own people. Redmond Shannon reports.
Another clamber for oxygen during a brutal rise in COVID-19 cases, this time in Myanmar, allegedly made worse by the military regime withholding medical supplies from its opponents.
Healthcare workers are being attacked and arrested. The virus is spreading through the population very fast indeed.
On Sunday, leader Min Aung Hlaing blamed the opposition for the virus spread. Marking 6 months since his coup, he is promising free and fair elections by August 2023, with 2 more years of a state of emergency.
If he actually believes in democracy and democratic values, he wouldn't stage a coup on 1st of February and continue killing civilians until today. So again, these are empty promises.
Wei Nin Pwinton is a Burmese democracy activist. Just like her father, he was jailed at the start of the coup. Months of protests since then have seen hundreds of deaths and thousands of arrests. Quinton says the previous regime of Aung San Suu Kyi was deeply flawed too, accountable to the military, but it was democratically elected.
In Burma, we never had a genuine or even democracy at all. In city areas, yes, we had relative freedom, but in ethnic area, human rights abuses and human rights violations continue in that 10 years period.
Including the persecution and killing of Rohingya Muslims in 2017, actions Ottawa calls genocide. Long-term change, she says, will need more international pressure, like the sanctions imposed by Canada and others.
They have been able to get away with all these atrocities, not only from the 1st of February, but from many, many decades. And so they have this sense of impunity that they can get away with almost everything.
Leaders in the region meet Monday to appoint an envoy to broker talks between the junta and the opposition. And this week, the first trial of Suu Kyi is set to wrap. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Up next, Canadian politics heats up again, but why do very few black voices have a say in it?
Today may seem like just another day. Same morning smoothie, same gas up for the grocery run, same checking of your bank balance. But with RBC Vantage, today unlocks powerful benefits. So that smoothie now earns rewards points when you pay with debit.
Oh.
Gassing up the car unlocks savings at Petro-Canada.
Oh.
And checking your bank balance in the RBC mobile app unlocks a personalized budget in seconds.
Ah.
RBC Vantage. Unlock powerful benefits every day with an RBC personal bank account. What saving on unlimited data with the TELUS family discount feels like. Like the meeting that could have been an email, actually becoming an email. Like your kids sleeping in on the weekend.
Like finding a new sock in the dryer instead of losing one.
Like calling dibs on the last slice of pizza. Like saving up to $720 a year with the TELUS family discount. Visit TELUS.com/family discount to learn more. Conditions apply. You're not going to believe it.
We won the lottery?
My pardon has been granted.
That is like winning the lottery. Now that your record is clear, let's celebrate with a trip to Vegas.
I've always wanted to go, and now we can.
A criminal record can impact cross-border travel and potential job opportunities. Pardons and Waivers of Canada, PWOC, and get your criminal record expunged. PWOC, record removal made easy. 416-498-7111. 416-498-7111. Online, pwoc.com.
It's been a challenging year for those balancing work, children, and busy lives while caring for loved ones. I'm Doug McClatchy, CEO of Amica Senior Lifestyles. As life returns to normal, those challenges may become more than you can manage. You don't have to do it alone. We can help with exceptional care in a premium residence with safe social connections that make life easier and better for everyone right now. See for yourself. Book a tour at amica.ca.
Are you or your child living with diabetes? If so, imagine life without fingerprints. With the Freestyle Libre 2 system, you can check glucose with a simple scan of a sensor. The system comes with optional alarms that let you know the minute glucose is too high or too low, and it's covered by most private insurers. Learn more at freestylelibre.ca. The Freestyle Libre 2 flash-glucose monitoring system is indicated for measuring interstitial fluid glucose levels in people aged 4 years and older with diabetes mellitus. Always read and follow the label. Fingerprints are required. Readings do not match symptoms or expectations.
Stop guessing, start knowing. 640 is powered by global news journalism. We are your news talk leader. 640 Toronto. You're watching Global National.
Don't give up the fight.
Across the country, Canadians are marking the first official Emancipation Day. It commemorates the abolition of slavery in the British Empire in 1834. In March, the federal government voted to recognize Emancipation Day annually on August the 1st. Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, who led the push, says this is just the start.
The national recognition of Emancipation Day signals the beginning of what we do next. We need to have education of the Black History movement across curriculum and all year long. So that's one of the things. An apology. We've not had an apology.
The end of slavery did not bring an end to discrimination in this country. Black Canadians have faced barriers in voting rights and in holding public office that is still reflected in Parliament today. Black Canadians make up 3.5% of the population, but barely 2% in the Senate and in the House of Commons. When voters don't see themselves represented, engaging them in elections is a challenge. Ross Lord reports on the consequences and the efforts to bring change in Nova Scotia.
On election night 1993, Wayne Adams made history. He became the first black member of the Nova Scotia legislature. Almost 3 decades later, the number of black MLAs in the province is stuck at 1.
I had envisaged that there'd be a floodgate opening after my election with many African Nova Scotians applying for a career in public life.
The sting of stalled progress hurts most in communities like North Preston, where most residents are black and which bears the brunt of systemic racism.
I think, especially for Nova Scotia, having only one black MLA is definitely not enough.
There are new efforts underway. For the first time, Elections Nova Scotia has hired an outreach officer to increase participation in African Nova Scotian communities like this one.
Voting is very important, and the African Nova Scotians community in particular, we don't really pay much attention to that because we don't see representation from ourselves very much so in the election process. So this is one of the reasons why I'm here.
Operation Black Vote says there are 11 black candidates in the Nova Scotia election from an expected total of almost 200 candidates. In the provincial riding that includes North Preston, all 3 parties have nominated black candidates. But efforts to promote participation are still undermined by racial controversy. Provincial Liberal candidate Angela Simmons, who's a lawyer, is filing an official complaint against the RCMP. Simmons and her husband, Dean, a police officer, say they feared for their lives after they were pulled over at gunpoint by RCMP this month.
So this is why it's important to have someone like her at the decision-making table. Because she can talk about her lived experience of driving in Nova Scotia and being pulled over by the police and the experience she had.
The RCMP defends its officers, saying the couple's car matched the description of the suspect in the shooting incident. Federally, progress is also sluggish. More than a half century after Lincoln Alexander became the first black member of parliament, there are 7 black MPs in the 338-seat House of Commons.
We seem to not be building but replacing black elected officials, and that's something that we want to change.
In Nova Scotia and across Canada, that change is happening more slowly than surely. Ross Lord, Global News, North Preston, Nova Scotia.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Eric Sorensen. Tonight, your Canada is Clearwater Lake Regional Park in Saskatchewan. We would love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Farah Nasser will be back at the anchor desk tomorrow. Have a great night.
Start your day with Anthony Robart and Candace Daniel, along with Liam Vu and Marianne Demain. Watch Global News Morning weekdays starting at 6 a.m. and download the Global TV app to get Global News for free anytime. Insightful, engaging, and intelligent. This is CFMJ Global News Radio 640 Toronto, a Chorus Entertainment company. You're listening to Global News Radio 640 Toronto. This is Global News at 7 o'clock.
From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Roger Ward. This is the day that further COVID-19 restrictions are being lifted in Quebec. The Health Ministry announced the latest relaxed COVID-19 measures for the beginning of August back on July the 26th. Quebecers are now allowed to drink alcohol in bars and restaurants until 1 a.m. Indoor venues and stadiums can now seat 7,500 people with a maximum of 500 per section. Outdoor festivals can have up to 15,000 pre-assigned seats. However, there must be masks mandatory and social distancing in enclosed public spaces and transit. From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Roger Ward. It's a historic day for Canada at the Tokyo Olympics. Toronto's Penny Oleksiak earned her 7th career medal to become Canada's most decorated Olympian of all time.
It's really nice for me to make history with girls that are making history, because we truly do have some of the fastest girls in the world.
Sprinter Andre de Grasse has become the first male athlete on Canada's team to win a medal. He got bronze in the men's 100 meters with a personal best time of 9.89 seconds. Canada now has 14 medals. Police in Alberta say a competitor in an Ironman triathlon west of Calgary has died. Mounties say they received a call about a drowning at Harmony Lake in Rocky View County early this morning. They say a 47-year-old Ontario man was located by volunteers in the water.
Well, you keep hiring stupid people to be cashiers.
And documented migrants can get vaccinated without appointment papers in the Greater Kuala Lumpur area. The government is aiming to give all adults in the capital and surrounding states at least one shot of a COVID-19.
And historical sites in Beijing should not exceed 60% of maximum capacity. Visitors should also make appointments in advance.
Those entering hotels and rural homestays for accommodation must take temperature checks and scan health codes. Local people are advised not to leave Beijing unless necessary, while those from high or medium risk areas are not allowed to enter the city. Nanjing reported more local COVID-19 infections over the weekend. Liu Jiaxin has the latest on the situation in that city.
Well, latest in Nanjing, on the first day of August, 14 new cases were reported, bringing the total to 204 since July the 20th. The number of newly reported cases is climbing now after 2 consecutive days of falling. 49 out of 8
status. Wildfire that broke out in western Greece is
since coming back to Toronto to play ball. They beat Kansas City this
getting severe. 116 bus routes were suspended in the city's Jiangning district, where many areas were designated as high-risk areas. At the same time, the second dose of vaccinations have been resumed in Nanjing's many low-risk areas, which is good news.
In the meantime, the city of Zhengzhou is battling a COVID resurgence amid the aftermath of devastating floods. Wang Mengjie reports.
Zhengzhou now has 12 confirmed cases and 21 asymptomatic cases. The city is facing big challenges as the city just suffered heavy floods, and now it has witnessed a new wave of COVID-19 resurgence. The two are overlapped. As another city with rising cases, Nanjing Zhengzhou situation is a little bit different, as most of the infected are found in hospital. The cleaning staff, the medical staff, and patients are involved. The hospital now has stopped its work. And the Delta variant can be transmitted faster with a high viral load and may take a longer time to return active. There are 1 area as high risk for COVID-19 in Zhengzhou right now, and 3 areas as middle risk. All of them are in Erji district, the south.
To improve the green finance system. And that's the news. I'm Sui.
Provide you with in-depth news and expert analysis, telling the full story and vividly, bringing you the news you want to know on Today.
Extreme weather, including floods, heat waves, and wildfires, is sweeping the globe. Do those weather events have any connection with climate change? Welcome to World Today, the panel discussion with me, Anna, in Beijing. Unprecedented floods after torrential downpours, wildfires ravage due to record-breaking temperatures. In the past month, devastating weather extremes have hit regions across the world and again put climate change in focus. So is there a strong link between extreme weather
the concept
and
thereof. That's an interesting way to put it.
Media others deemed as medium-risk COVID-19 hotspots as of Sunday.
Call into the Pinpoint Health Show, Saturday mornings at 11, and get expert advice from the doctor himself. Can't wait till Saturday? For all your pain care needs, call Pinpoint Health now, 1-855-55-DOCTOR.
Crystal ball, and I always like to put the sparkles.
Since then, accounting for 80% of the current infections in Jiangsu. Local authorities are ramping up efforts to
triple this one. This is World Today or Business Today. Or
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Dr. Wu, let me begin with you. How would you define extreme weather here? Can recent torrential rainfalls in northern China and floods in Europe and heat waves in North America be considered as extreme weather?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's just according to the definition, extreme weathers are defined as the occurrences of unexpected, unusual, severe weather conditions or climate conditions that it can cause devastating impacts on local communities, agriculture.
And taxis only if they show a green health code on their smartphones, green lighting them to be in public places. Other cities in Jiangsu also affected by the latest outbreak include Huai'an, Yangzhou, and Suqian. Provinces including Henan and Hunan have also been reporting new locally transmitted COVID-19 cases over the past few days. The tourist city of Zhangjiajie in Hunan province has 11 areas classified as medium risk. Officials there have placed all residential communities under closed-off management. They've also closed all major tourist sites. Deng Jian is official with the Cultural and Tourism Bureau of Zhangjiajie. He says that his department is helping tourists trapped at the latest outbreak receive nucleic acid tests and leave the city in orderly fashion.
Currently, there are about 1,000 tourists stranded in Zhangjiajie. Most of them have undergone the second round of nucleic acid tests, while some of them have completed the third round. All the results are negative, and they are leaving the city in batches.
Nearly half of the known cases in Henan are in the provincial capital Zhengzhou, which also has an area classified as high risk. Deputy Secretary General Li Huifang of the Zhengzhou municipal government says that the city plans to step up efforts to contain the outbreak.
Visitors to densely packed public places, including hotels, cinemas, theaters.
Alberta as the tailpipe of Canada, and just the way that everything was funneling in from BC and from the prairies in northern Ontario was all coming back into Alberta, causing some real grief. Like I said, the smoke is cleared up now, but the situation is pretty high risk across the province. And in Banff, they've told tourists out there and people in that area, hey, you know what, prepare to evacuate if needed. Like everyone is just on tenterhooks right now. And Greg, it's pretty smoky out your way too, you were saying?
Tenterhooks. It is, and we sit 30 floors above Portage in Maine here in Winnipeg, and so usually, as the saying goes, you can watch your dog run away for 4 days in Manitoba, as David Steinberg once famously said, and it's been adapted by many other comedians over the years, and that's true to a certain extent, but there have been a couple of mornings where you could barely see 5 or 6 blocks down either direction from where we're sitting. So we're not used to that. And in fact, get this, there was one meteorologist who suggested that the rain that we got earlier this week may have been, in fact, because of the smoke. It actually gave some of the water droplets something to stick to and to create actual rain, which we haven't had very much of at all. Not only
that's crazy.
Summer, but really
that's how rain works.
2.5 years now.
Wow.
I'm curious to know, like, out here it is so dry right now, right? Where we've seen like brush fires on the sides of the freeway, and I get emails from people all the time complaining. I see people smoking. I see people, throwing their.
If you have brush fires on both sides of the freeway, whatever you called it, you really have a freeway going through a fire is what you have. You're not too swift. You're dumb.
Was what happened in Germany last week, and I think it's a bit of a shock. We tend to think of Germany as a very well organized and protected society, but they had devastating floods with loss of life. The challenge for scientists, of course, is there's always been some, weather varies a lot. There's always been some extremes.
Always been some extremes. Yeah.
Measures be taken from members of high-risk
groups. What percentile does it have to be from the extreme end to be considered extreme?
Delta variant is raging across the world. Some countries are offering a third coronavirus shot to slow down the spread. Experts say more scientifically based evidence, including study by the WHO, is needed before countries can decide on the timing and priority groups for the booster jab. For more, Jiao
not decide if they're going to do
Professor Chen Shi at the School of Public Health at Yale University.
It's very welcome news that a potential booster shot could boost our protection against the highly contagious Delta variant. So what do you think of the data? Who should get the third jab and when?
There's still mixed evidence. Although Pfizer has been released evidence showing that they are positive about the third dose being effective in boosting the immunity, but the WHO most recently was saying that they are still studying the durability of the vaccine, which means that they are still trying to understand how long the protection can last and before recommending a booster. There's a lot of research going on worldwide to be able to provide more scientific-based evidence and recommendations. And the WHO is also mentioning that they're evaluating whether to approve booster shots on a product-by-product basis because they don't believe that all the vaccines need a booster. Some may, some may not. So if the WHO endorses a booster shot, it's very likely likely, according to them, that they will be towards a selected group of recipients, mostly are older persons or people with chronic conditions that make them more vulnerable to severe conditions. But there are more remaining questions unanswered. For example, if need a booster, whether they can mix different types of vaccine and what kind of mixture can be more safer and more effective. So those are all the questions open to scientists to answer.
And the other thing is, Professor, that there's a lot of people in countries that still haven't even received their first jab of coronavirus vaccine. So let's say a third jab is endorsed. Are you concerned that it could cause a shortage in vaccine supply?
Yes, indeed. That's exactly my worries. But not only within a country, since we know that, for example, UK was in a shortage of vaccine at the beginning, so that's why they are like prioritize the first dose and try to lengthen the time window between the first and the second. And many other countries are doing this. So with the third dose being implemented, I think there might be an even bigger shortage in many countries in the world. And it would also increase the shortage in the global scale, because we know in less developed countries, most of the people are having no access to even one single dose.
2 to 3,
and
that's
this
50%
is exactly
more,
why the Pfizer's R&D of the third dose is very controversial in America now, because people argue that this is profit-driven, because they think that the capacity of Pfizer being used to produce the third dose can be better used to produce more first 2 doses, can benefit the global population better.
That was Assistant Professor Chen Shi at the School of Public
Dude, you and me going to go into the cocaine business together, because you
Delta
understand the basics.
Detected in India late last year, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's as contagious as chickenpox and more transmissible than the common cold, smallpox, Ebola, MERS, or SARS, with a longer transmission window than the original COVID-19 strain. The variant may make older people sicker, even if they've been fully vaccinated.
Now, this is why this story came out on Friday, because the new CRI wouldn't be up again until right now.
1,000 times more
2,300
virus
hours.
particles may test positive 2 days earlier than those infected with the original novel coronavirus. Chinese officials say vaccines are effective for COVID-19 variants, despite some vaccinated people getting infected. So far, over 1.6 billion doses of vaccine have been administered across the Chinese mainland. Authorities are also working to expand vaccinations to teenagers and seniors. Feifei has the story.
Wait.
A number of Chinese cities have rolled out their plan to
teenagers hang out with your old people. That's a good idea.
And 17. But before they get the jabs, their guardians are required to sign a consent form. The teens are receiving vaccines from either Sinopharm or Sinovac. These young people said the vaccination makes them feel safe.
I think the vaccination normally takes a little while.
Do you have any pride for your country of China to not be afraid with or without medical care?
Just like receiving other vaccines.
Keep marching. Keep marching.
Getting the jab is also a guarantee for my health. I have just received the first dose, and I am expecting the second one. That means I will be fully vaccinated before college begins. Getting vaccinated makes me feel safe.
Chen Lan, Deputy Director of the Shifang Health Bureau in Sichuan Province, said they hope to complete most of the vaccinations before October.
We will start to vaccinate senior high school students aged between 15 and 17, and then move to the junior highs in the 12 to 14 age groups in August and September.
Hold on, those are the official ages. 15 to 17 is high school, and what did you say, 12 to 14
The seniors can go to their community hospitals, or they can also ask medical workers to come to their home.
They never defined all that.
Why is the director of a local hospital
There's
in
13 grades plus an extra one plus 2 kindergartens, you little bastards. It's like,
The
holy
vehicle
fuck.
travels around their community and offers help to those in need.
Plus an extra year. I was in daycare a year early because my mom worked. That's 17 years in the system, bro. Holy.
Because of
What
long
do you
distance and other
10,
issues.
right? 8.
We hope this vehicle can solve this problem.
As the Delta strain of the virus spreads in multiple regions in China, experts continue to stress on vaccinations. Respiratory specialist Zhong Nanshan said scientists are also working on vaccines targeting Delta, Delta Plus, and more mutations in the future.
Delta
For the
Plus.
Beijing
What's
Hour,
Delta Plus?
Officials in some African
What's
countries
inside
are
my sinus
criticizing
here
the
right
attempts
now,
to
drilling a
politicize
hole?
the origin
What is it?
tracing
It's right
of
here.
COVID-19. Zimbabwean Information Minister Monica Mutsvangwa warns that the move will undermine global efforts to fight the pandemic.
The experience of the spread of COVID-19 and the constant mutation of variants serve to highlight the vital nature of this international cooperation in fighting this disease. This is the founding charter of the World Health Organization. Political finger-pointing and accusations that stigmatize nations and communities have no room in the fight against pandemics that threaten collective humanity.
She's calling on countries to stop injecting geopolitical and ideological prejudices into the antivirus fight. Meanwhile, Anil Suklal with the South African Department of International Relations and Cooperation called for more attention on vaccination cooperation.
Let us now focus on the greater need. Less than 3% of Africa has been vaccinated thus far. It shouldn't be so disparate in terms of the poorer countries experiencing serious and critical shortage of vaccines and availability of vaccines. And I think we must applaud China for wanting to share vaccine and making the vaccine available, especially to the poor countries.
He also called on developed countries to do more to increase equitable access to vaccines.
We just ordered two for every... Oh, coming up.
Five participants will be compensated up to $4,000.
Better locations so that people can walk or cycle to work and so forth. Now, some of those things could also help to address climate impacts. Obviously, if you do have more green spaces and soil, the city has more capacity to absorb water, whereas concrete just immediately leads to flooding if drains get blocked.
It depends.
But as I say, I'm not really
It's
an
permeable
expert on
concrete is
adaptation of city design.
Water gets into concrete. Don't kid yourself.
Perhaps the simple evidence
what's happening to the gardener with all the salt.
Dr. Wu, so from flash floods in China, UK, Germany, and Belgium, and to deadly temperatures in the US and landslides in India, do you think there are links behind the recent extreme weather events around the world?
Well, I don't pretend to be, a climate scientist. Just from my, knowledge so far, I think yes. If you look at actually the global warming, the basic, scientific sort of observation is that global is warming. Now we are at the level of around 1.2 degrees Celsius already compared to the pre-industrial, period. And so we also know that for every 1 degree Celsius temperature rise, the air holds up 7% actually of water vapors, right? Meaning more evaporation will be held up actually in the atmosphere.
You said you weren't a climate scientist.
Getting warmer there as well. So we dramatically interrupted the water cycle of the planetary system. And we all say water is alive. So you could literally imagine when we disrupt.
If the water, as the temperature increases, the relative humidity decreases because that's a percentage, meaning the absolute amount of water the air could hold goes up. Like it could absorb more every time the temperature goes up. If the air is hotter and it's absorbing more water, all the ice that's floating on the water can't contribute to the increase in the sea level. How is the sea level increasing?
Specific situation, the upper atmosphere, the current flow is actually dramatically slowing down. So with all those factors together, somehow this is a sort of reflecting in reality. So in some regions like China, Central Europe, Western Europe, and some even now Mumbai actually. So we're experiencing this sort of a dramatic sort of heavy downpour.
What's happening in Mumbai?
Flooding. And then of course
they were lagging behind most of the provinces, but Dr. Hinshaw keeps saying that these decisions made on the fact that vaccine uptake has been fairly good.
Yeah, but that's not a useful metric.
For the first time in the Olympic history, the accessible facilities definitely highlights the 2022 Winter Games. So far, many facilities are already in place in the venues, including the 227 elevators, 860 rooms, 490 toilets, and 100.
The Winter Games turned you into a Paralympic.
Stations. In the past 5 years, the working mechanism and coordinating methods were established.
With more on the progress of Beijing 2022, Ning Hong visited some of the major venues and talked to visitors there.
The 2022 Winter Olympics will be held in 3 locations in and around the Chinese capital. In the west of Beijing, a ski jumping platform has been built at the Shougang Park. The organizing committee preserved the structure of the factory.
7 grams of fat, 5 grams of protein. Didn't these used to have like 9 grams of protein?
The factory were recycled.
I'm really impressed just because this topic now, recycle in the world, is really important. And I was thinking, I'm thinking it's a really great idea to use old materials to rebuild the new buildings, and so stylish and fashionable. It's really, really nice.
The other venues are in Beijing's Xi'an atmosphere. All these symptoms of a warming planet are being felt in.
You guys aren't good at measuring things. I'll measure a little over here and a little over here, but only in the daytime. And then sometimes I'll move the thermometer and not tell nobody. And then we'll just lie outright about the numbers. That's an interesting one. Doesn't add up.
The drought.
Why is Mars heating up? I'm just wondering. Why is Mars? How is our CO2 emissions? Right. It doesn't make sense. Because you can't insulate against a vacuum using a gas. That doesn't make sense.
When we're ill, and just to get personal for a second here, I've used this analogy on the air. My mom suffered from serious mental illness before we lost her about 20 years ago.
I swear the
and my mom was a wonderful woman. She was very strong, but when she was at her worst, she couldn't do anything. She was paralyzed. So it would take months and months to find her the right mix of medication, the right thing that would give her her natural pep in her step back. And then she would have a run of 6 months where things were going really great. And she would use that as a justification for going off her medication.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a very common situation, Greg, right? You start to feel good and you think, I'm feeling good. I don't need any of this.
So these two people are going to claim they know what's wrong with schizophrenic people because they don't want to stay on the meds. Right. You ever hear when schizophrenics tell you what the medication's doing? These people will write it down reverse. Oh, they're hearing voices is why they need the meds. That person just told you they never heard voices before in their life till you put them on those meds.
Regional health restrictions, that was something that,
You know what drives me crazy about me? They did all these experimentations on me and did not damage me. They're upset. They think I won't sue because I haven't gone through you don't know what country you're in.
Restrictions, and not our health minister, your medical officer of health, and our chief medical officer.
The United States is home to burglars that sue homeowners, crackheads that sue crack dealers successfully. You think I won't get some money, you stupid?
Fine.
The reason you got your friends trying to hit me with their cars and shit, eh?
Someone, taking the what out of me the other day when I was talking about our children, saying, well, the death rate among kids is really, really low. And I said, yeah, but out of the 233,000 cases that we've had in this province, 50,000 of them have been kids from 0 to 19. 50,000 of them.
Oh, see, you're combining. You can't
the parents
do
to
that.
be infected. Think about the teachers. Think about the grandparents. It's not just death.
Think about the teachers and the grandparents. Again, the kids can only get it from adults' actions, not the other way around. You're not getting sick because your 2-year-old sneaking out in the middle of the night, go to the club and come back without telling you, and then you get exposed somehow and didn't realize. That's not what's happening, is it? No. 50,000 cases were kids. Okay, and since the death rate is like 1/1000th, that's the same as if 5 kids got sick. You're not good at math. No, you are good, but you're bad at pretending not to know stuff.
Yes, I think as mentioned here, as Professor Grubb mentioned, I think this week's the scientific news, scientific knowledge will emerge. I think there's no ambiguity that it is happening, and the situation will continue to worse, mostly because we continue to emit more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Wu. You're listening now to our live broadcast for World Today. We've been talking about the deadly weather and its connection to climate change. And let's have a short break. We'll be back in a minute.
6 years ago, on July 31st, 2015, Beijing won the bid to host the 2022 Winter Olympics. Unfortunately, our live stream of the tour of Ice Ribbon, the venue for the Beijing Winter Olympics speed skating event, has been cancelled due to force majeure. We'll therefore no longer have the live stream on our Facebook account, CRI Learn Chinese, and the Weibo account, China Plus, at 4:30 p.m. today, as announced earlier. But do stay tuned to our sport podcast, Sideline Story, for the...
It will be sunny and 30. In Africa, Nairobi is getting overcast conditions and 23 degrees. And finally to Oceania, Port Vila is getting a slight rainfall and 25 degrees Celsius. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, more cases of the COVID-19 Delta variant have been identified in China. And officials in Beijing are taking steps to curb the spread of the virus. China leads the medal table in Tokyo with 24 golds so far, including 3 more on Sunday. And the U.S. has eased restrictions for Chinese students. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
Join the most popular Chinese language learning page on Facebook by searching for CRI Learn Chinese. It's a quick yet fun way to achieve your language goals. Start your free lessons now with unlimited videos, photos, and text tutorials.
You're literally doing the same thing you've done 1,000 times, Chomo. You're not creative.
The fact that this is going to be with us for a long time, I guess it just signaled focus on other things. And since getting
an internet connection, you fucking child molester.
I go, boy, oh boy, how are we going to pay for this last year?
Yeah, exactly. Jalen, does that surprise you though? That what would you say is on the minds of people in Alberta?
The economy. The economy is, I think, is number one, and it has been on the minds of Albertans for a number of years now. And
well, you're waving the child molester flag.
Different idea of
what are you attacking us for? Why are you using kiddie porn software to do it? Keep it up.
I think any other province in this country, and so we hear a lot about Alberta not getting a fair deal from government, and so the economy out here, that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I hear a lot of people talking about how we're going to pay this debt down. What does that mean for future generations? So economy, affordability, and healthcare. You know,
oh wow, you're so
healthcare to me, I think is, well, it always has been a huge topic in Alberta.
Hurry the fuck up! Why do you think I didn't finish rolling the joint yet?
Absolutely huge out here. It's the biggest budget in the province. But I think COVID shone a light on it. I think COVID shone a light on long-term care and about our system. So not necessarily as surprising for me out here. And to be honest, I think a lot of people just want to move on. They want to get that.
So you're waving the child molester flag as high as you can wave it. You're angry. So you're going to attack everybody you could attack because they won't say good things about child molesters. I don't give a fuck if fucking goofs don't like me. I don't care if you sex offenders don't like me. You've predicated this for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, 20 years about you're going to not like me if I don't, what? Help you be a child molester? Fuck off. Look, you can't even do a proper hack. You don't have a proper internet connection. It took you 8 fucking minutes to do that. Wow, it went down. Oh, then it's going to go up again. No, where'd that happen? Where'd that go? Not happening, huh? You got the software is signed. The software is signed. Everybody knows where you got it from. You only got that software by cruising certain chat rooms on the internet you're not supposed to be on. So what are you doing trying to use it on us, stupid? You are retarded.
Which contains a great truth. But before
former US president said the Stone Age didn't end because the world ran out of stone. The Stone Age ended because human beings got smart. You can say about fossil fuel. The fossil fuel age won't end because
that sounds like a 13-year-old European girl wrote it for you, stupid.
Became smarter. The human animal became
yes,
smarter.
Chomo, keep waving your teeth. You have to take like a 9-minute break before your ISP lets you do that again, eh?
That's the reason.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
The big developments.
What's wrong? How come you can't edit the photo you're showing me anymore?
Late last year,
you used to show me an edited photo every time, and now you don't. You keep doing this during the most boring parts of what I find anyway. They'll prove it. Listen to this.
Bennett says they aim to vaccinate all eligible people by the end of August. Germany's introduced new border rules on requiring travelers who aren't fully vaccinated or haven't recovered from COVID-19 to produce a negative result. The new rule comes amid rising concerns about infections brought back from summer vacations.
You're not a hacker, you're a travel
relatively low case rate. Unvaccinated people traveling by air were already required to test negative. You think you're going to test this software on us
and then go out in the world and check it? You're going to find the open Wi-Fi.
Modes of transportation are now also required to prove their status. Australia has reported more
pathology is so apparent and ingrained. It's pathetic.
In New South Wales,
you don't even have self-preservation.
Tests were conducted.
You don't have self-preservation.
Infections discovered in Sydney on Saturday.
Bacteria
New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian urged local residents to come forward
and get still exists.
On the people of Greater Sydney, of Greater New South Wales, to come forward and get vaccinated. To get to the 70% target, we need 9.2 million jabs. To get to the 80% target, we need 10 million jabs. And we've been talking about this in New South Wales for some time. Pleasingly, in the last 24 hours, we had over 82,000 people get vaccinated in one day alone.